What's up, everybody? This is KARAK with ACG, and I'm here with Silver and Johnny, No Absy, and Cadiz for the Best Gaming Podcast number 425. 425. If you get a chance, tweet out that we're doing this. We're going to be talking about Modern Warfare 3's reviews. We're going to be talking about WB's service games, GTA maybe. We're going to be talking about Steamdeck 1.2.000 upgrade AQB. I have no clue what it's called, but it is the weirdest upgrade I think I've ever seen on a handheld system. We're going to be talking about Red Dead and its sales. Johnny's played some Yakuza. We'll see what Silver and Cadiz have been playing. We're going to talk about Fallout 4's inevitable remake. I'm just joking. But Fallout 4's 8 years. Does Fallout 4 seem older than that? Because Red Dead is 5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, Red Dead is 5.
Yeah,
like
it's feeling like it's almost due for like a, anniversary edition or re-release, like a Skyrim release kind
special
of
edition,
right?
Special
there you go,
compressed, audio
special compressed audio edition. Oh my god, that's a deep cut.
Wow! And they did release the like 4K texture packs, I think.
Oh, okay.
Oh, did they? I know. And then one of them had like the upgraded FPS boost. Which I think the FPS boost is awesome. But.
If you want your mods to work, you need to get this version edition.
The secret edition secret. It should be secret because it sucked, but the special edition of Skyrim was that way. It's just all over the place. I had issues with audio, and then like certain executables wouldn't work. I think they got it fixed up, but it's just one of those things. What's everybody in chat playing right now? What are the games? It looks like some people are playing Modern Warfare. Live KARAK's the best KARAK. Well, that is a super low bar. That is
conscious
a ridiculously low bar. Conscious, somewhat alive, breathing KARAK is the best KARAK. Yeah, I don't know if all my
groggy
KARAK. I've been playing Starfield on the ROG Ally. Or do you guys call it ROG or ROG?
ROG.
I typically just say ROG. Do you? I don't know. But in my head, occasionally I'll hear ROG.
You're a fucking hipster, man. Come on, ROG. I'm just joking. I've never quite known exactly what it's supposed to be, but I do. I also, ROG.
Yeah, I think it's like GIF and GIF. One sounds more correct than the other to different people, but it's like...
Well, but isn't it Republic of Gamers is what it's supposed to... Like, it's an acronym or something?
For ROG?
Yeah, Republic of Gamers, I think is the actual brand name. As dumb as that is, I think actually just having ROG by itself is a better version of that.
That's like one time I gave some money to Dr. Disrespect on Twitch. He was doing something hilarious, and I was like, dude, this deserves a little bit of money. I gave him some, and he pronounced it ACOG. Or like a game, and I was like, "It's so true. It's so true." Like you could see that and immediately think of it. So many guitars.
Choking
I need
on
an ACG rig rundown. Yeah, these are all my guitars. This is all my setup. Those are Johnny's. My setup's better. There's a guy in one of my backgrounds, but he's not there this time because somebody asked me if I was paying that dude in the background, and I didn't realize there was a guy in the background.
He's the sound producer. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's exactly.
He's the video editor. He's just editing.
Yeah.
Yep, he's back there editing. I mean, you can tell, dude, how good my edits are, right? Like if you saw the last time on ACG prior to this video starting, I mean, you know that my edits, there honestly, might be no better edits.
You give yourself shit, but dude, like in the reviews, I'm always like, did this man really dig up the specific video footage for what he's commenting right now?
Well, I appreciate you getting it because I do
Holy
that, but
crap,
most
dude.
people are like, what's he talking about? And I'm like, like that missed them, like that complete. Dude, I'll be talking about something in the reference
lands. Girls before swine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just, it's a little bit like wine tasting where some people are like, this is just not for me. That's ACG in a nutshell. That's all of us. That's why we're doing a Friday podcast, man. It looks like people are also playing Tales of Arise. So
there's a DLC that dropped, right?
Oh, okay.
What is it? What's the 9?
I know nothing about
ACG Best Gaming Podcast. Let's talk about.
You have been informed.
It's out. That's as far as. Did you guys hear about the Steamdeck? Yeah, I think that's a handheld. So anyway, about what we were talking and walking and doing on the background. What about you, Silver? What have you been playing? Because you didn't get to come to last Friday's. What's the game?
I'm kind of still trying to get into Alan Wake 2. And I hate it because my brain kind of won't let me. Because I can't for some reason get beyond the sound of like Saga's footsteps in that game. where it sounds like she has soggy shoes.
Yeah.
And so it completely undercuts like any tension. Like, oh no, it's dark and people are hunting me. And then I hear like from her.
Wouldn't it be scarier if you were in that, but also having to like deal with soggy shoes?
That would be scary. Yeah.
It would be, except then I would hear like the sound of my actual
You're
shoes.
You're just utterly distracted by the sogginess
on the floor, which is unintentionally funny, constantly, and it's constantly distracting to me in a way that I can't. I find my focus drifting from the game, and I can't really get into it. And I want to get into it, but my brain just won't let me.
It's like,
but I've also
ASR.
But I've also been playing EAWRC, the new rally game from Codemasters. Really loving it, honestly. There are some definite rough patches, particularly with performance. You may have heard it if you followed coverage of the game. It had major stuttering issues at release. Those have sort of been, I think, mostly been fixed now with the latest patch. I'm playing it on the Series X, and it runs fairly well a lot of the time, but there are definitely some rough patches here and there on certain stages. But I really, it's the most fun I've had with a racing game in a very long time. They've implemented long rally stages now, so it used to be in most rally games a stage would take you like 5 or 10 minutes to complete. Like they would be fairly short. Here, like the short stages are like up to 10 kilometers, then medium stages are 10 to 20, and the longer stages run from like 20 all the way up to over 30 kilometers, and that'll take it, depending on the car, that'll take you like 30 to 60 minutes to do a run in a single rally, where you need to be high speed, and any mistake at any point is going to cost you potentially the entire run. And then you have to get the car back to service, and you have to fix it up in between stages.
I got you.
Depending on whether you run a long rally, like a full 9-stage rally, or a shorter one with fewer stages, like that sort of thing really starts to take its toll on the car. So you need to constantly calculate: can I push? Do I have to push? Can I actually relax the throttle here? It's a lot of fun. There are so many stages. I think there are like 200 plus stages in the game. There are a lot of fully licensed cars, old cars. The only ones really missing are Toyotas, but otherwise there's everything from Citroëns to Mitsubishis.
Nothing of worth was lost.
All of the classic rally stuff is there. Audi Quattro, and the sound design is absolutely amazing. Some of the best engine sound, not only engine sounds, but also just like sound effects during racing, depending on whatever surface you're running on. If you like start skidding the edge of the track, you'll start to hear pebbles rattle. You'll start to hear damage in the car. Like maybe things will start rattling more and more. Engine will start sounding a bit off, stuff like that. It's just I really enjoy like the production value of it. Graphics aren't like visually that impressive compared to like the current level, but considering the scope of some of these stages, I think that's a fair compromise. It still looks really beautiful, and the dust effects are the best I've ever seen. Like when you run like a dirt track and you have the dust trail behind you, like it stays there for a really long time. And if you run a stage where you can actually see back to where you've been, you'll like see this massive trail of dust you've just left behind. It's really, really cool.
I mean, I know you do. I do get what you're talking about with the length of the races, but man, to me, that's awesome because there's it's like, it's a full, it could be almost an hour, and I'm sure you can pause. It's not the fucking Dark Souls of rally games. Like, but the idea that there's something about it that the farther you go, the more your mistakes can matter because you've gone without a mistake, and then that gets in the back of your brain. Then your face starts itching because you're stressed out, and you're like, and there's something just so. I remember Cadiz and I have a friend Roger, and when he would do racing games, he would get stressed out, and he always had a twitch and he would like scratch his face. He'd be like, And the more the race progressed and the better he did, the worse it got because it built up that stress of. It's almost like a no-hit run in Dark Souls or something. That's cool, man. I'm excited to check it out.
And I mean, it ties into like one of the main sort of appeals of driving of doing like rally races is the time trial aspect, where you get these. If you're running behind in the order, like you get the times of the other drivers, your times related to them, so you know, oh, I need to push harder in order to get ahead, or oh, I can let the throttle off because I have a decent lead. But if you're running first in the order, track degradation is also a thing. So the more people drive on a stage, the faster it gets to race on. Because you get paths that you can race on along the track. But if you're running first of the order, firstly, you don't have any times to compare yourselves to, because you're the one blazing the trail. But you also are running on a cold track, as it were. So you have to like constantly outweigh all of these advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. What about you, Cadiz? What are you playing?
I've gotten into Season 2 for Diablo 4. Went back in to see if they, what kind of improvements and see if it was better than Season 1. And yeah, top to bottom, it's significantly better. I've done, I took one character to 95 out of 100, and I've taken my second character now to just shy of 80 in about, it took me about 2 weeks to get to.
So you barely played it, barely scratched.
2 weeks to get those two, basically 2 weeks to get those characters to that level, and where it took like a month and a half to get a character to level 80 in the original game. So they made a bunch of quality of life adjustments. Gems are now not stored in your inventory; they're stored separately, and the new season stuff is also infinitely more stackable in your inventory, so it's not taking up a bunch of inventory space. Like the season mechanic is only taking 4 slots out of your multiple stuff, but that, as well as the Season of Blood, gives you 5 vampiric powers that you can select from, and that is not stored in your inventory. That's stored in a separate tab within your character page, so to speak. So it's not taking up inventory space at all. It's like great, smart idea. They put in a new mechanic for a zoned area called Blood Harvest, where it's similar to Helltide in that there's higher enemy density, lots of activities to do, good place to level up and get gear drops. But it's not one of those things. It runs for 30 minutes and then you don't see it for an hour. It's like it runs for 30 to 45 minutes and then moves to another location, and you just can go. And it coincides with Tree of Whispers, which is basically mission-based stuff that you can get through to go and then turn in to get more leveling. So it's feeding back into the leveling system and making it faster and more involved, and reducing some of the grind and getting you more chances to run and get loot on the tables. They've also added 4 bosses that you can do target farming for uniques, which were usually really hard to find, and you have to get incredibly lucky. And then no, here's the drop table for these, and here's how you go and fight them. And so it's just better and faster to do in general. And the mechanics of the abilities do work incredibly well with multiple different builds. You're not taking the original game or Season 1 meta builds and going and doing that again. We've done these things to make these off meta builds a little bit more stronger and more viable and interesting, and making them kind of ridiculous. So I'm pushing content that is 10 levels above my character, which would just destroy me in the original game, and I'm actually doing it like consistently, and you push that edge a lot more than you could, whereas if you were running in original content, you're running at the level and you're just dying constantly, kind of thing. So it feels like closer to what D3 was, and like your power level and the ability you can to survive in the game is a lot better than it was at launch and also with Season 1. So it just feels more like what everybody's been wanting, myself included. So it's been fun.
To sort of like in a nutshell, then, would we just say it's like Diablo 4 for wussies? Like it's just Diablo made it easier?
4 not so much easier. It's just it's more option. I mean, it is more easier options. In that there are more options. Yeah. So you're not like, if you want to be survivable in any capacity at any skill level, you have to run this one singular build or play this one singular character. Like I played a character class I'd never played before, which is Sorcerer, who was like top to bottom ranked as like one of the weakest classes up until recently, became one of the top level classes this season. And then I went back and played Druid, which was one that I had trouble with in the original game, and now it's like it's better, and it just feels like they're kind of leveling the character classes a little bit better. Barbarian's still kind of, I guess, falling behind. I haven't played Barbarian, so I can't really speak to it, but that's kind of the kind of story behind that. But I'm assuming they're going to make adjustments and kind of bring that up as well. But it's not just all like you play as Rogue and Necromancer if you want to just stomp the content because those are the only two classes that are competitive. No, now the other classes can also be competitive, and here's how, kind of thing, which is nice.
Excellent. Yeah. I'll get super chats and comments in a second. We also have some new stuff in Patreon I got to read. But real quick, Johnny, you also did Diablo at first. Have you jumped back into this, what he's talking about?
No. I kind of lost all interest. I tried to jump back into when the first season popped in. Yeah. But for me, the changes were not interesting enough to kind of go through the whole thing again of like getting a character to high level. And I think a lot of the enjoyment was from the campaign itself for me personally. And, playing with a friend sometimes, that type of stuff. But it wasn't lasting enough for me to go through, because the leveling process for a new character is you're going into pretty much like the same dungeon over and over, and you're just grinding it out, right? Which is okay. I mean, it's the game is fun, right? But for me, that wasn't really something I wanted to do right now.
What have you been playing, Johnny? I just want to ask you about Diablo, but what have you been playing in general?
So really briefly, because I know we have to get to super chats. So I've been playing Alan Wake 2. Some incredible moments. I'm sure we'll be able to dig more into talking about the game later once the dust settles.
Yeah, no worries.
But I've been on a Yakuza journey this week. So I had only played Judgment and a little bit of Like a Dragon, and I decided, you know what, I'm really interested in trying to jump into this series right now with the new game. So I watched those movies on YouTube where it's all the cutscenes from a game?
Absolutely one of my favorite things. Yeah.
I loved. I took that from Like a Dragon, and I watched the 3 hours of that and
awesome.
Understood.
Gamers Little Playground. Is that who you used?
That's
Gamers Little Playground.
I believe so. Yeah.
Dude,
and I saw
primo.
I saw all of like Ichiban's story from that game. I thought it was awesome. I actually really liked the English dub for that game. I enjoyed listening to it. And then I watched a kind of a summary of the 0 to 6 Yakuza games to kind of get the story behind Kiryu and his stuff. So it's been overwhelming to say the least, because, every game they introduce 200 names and they all sound the same to me in my head because I'm a Westerner.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to now remember like, okay, Majima, and then like all these kind of similar names and stuff. But haven't gone through all of that, and then today jumping into the game was almost magical because I had this
fresh in your brain
backstory,
right? Yeah,
and I was like, awesome. I was invested into it, and the combat is amazing in the game. It's awesome, like it looks good. The game looks fantastic, and I absolutely love the little quirky mini games. I mean, dude, I'm roaming through town and I'm, encountering all of these mini games. I'm learning how to play shogi. Is that how you pronounce it? Shogi?
Something close enough. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm terrible at it. Yeah, Rog. And then these card games where you're trying to match the cards on the table, but I just have no idea, man. They're giving you like card combinations that have weird names like Passion and Ribbon, whatever. And there's no explanation.
It's and fucking ad-lib generator where it's just like Flintstone, passion, and you're like, what do they have to do with one another? I don't have
what the
any
fuck
clue.
is even going on? But I guess I won. So I don't know. I'm just having a lot of fun with it. It's been awesome. So that's where I'm at this week.
And I've been playing. I was doing Broken Roads. Broken Roads got delayed until next year, which I fully support. Any game I fully support, but they're allowing some people to do previews. I'm not going to do one because there were enough issues that I was like sort of worried about it. So them delaying it was awesome. Like, I get why people are mad, and Broken Roads has a lot of promise. Disco Elysium, a post-apocalyptic game, but it had enough issues that, I just want to point it out. I fully support delays. Like, we're at a time now where there's so many games that fully supporting a delay. There's no, and this was the same way 10 years ago. It's just now it's in our faces, where it's like there is no reason except almost financial, if you have to fill your financials for the quarter, and then hubris, where you're just like, I'm going to do it anyway. It's like, otherwise you can delay it, and it's cool. I think gamers, we rally against the and there's a lot of technical facets now where people look at games more technically than they used to, so makes sense to hold off. Josh L, $5 super chat. Thanks for the pod, dudes. Any deep cut on Game Pass games you would recommend? Stellaris is on there, isn't it? Isn't Stellaris on Game Pass?
Did it get added?
I don't know if it's still there.
Age of Wonders might be on Game Pass. Yeah.
I've really been enjoying.
Yakuza 0. I played that on Game Pass.
Other than the Judgment, which aren't whatever. But
do you guys know Spiritfarer?
I mean, Football Manager.
I played some of that.
Just released on Game Pass.
What did?
Okay.
Football Manager 24.
Oh, okay.
And it's been getting really, like, this iteration's been getting really solid reviews.
Getting solid reviews.
And honestly, what I saw of it, the new match engine looks really, really impressive for that game.
See, Crusader Kings, Absy, who should be on the podcast. But anyway, regardless of that, so it's okay, Absy. I won't hold it against you. I did cry a little bit, but these guys wiped away my tears with the money we're making. I would say that most of the time the sports games don't do well. They just don't reiterate. They don't, or they iterate barely. But it's like the idea of doing a new graphics engine, I think putting it on Game Pass is smart, because then somebody who may have held that against them for years, that undercurrent of resentment of like, this is the same shit, jackass. Like, why aren't you just giving me the roster? And so the idea of saying Game Pass, to me, that's awesome, man. That's a smart friggin' move to be like, hey, this will be, and then they get the money from micros, right? Because I'm sure there's micros in a football game.
There are no microtransactions in Football Manager 24.
There aren't?
That's shocking.
Dude, that's like when I made the mistake. I was reviewing that football game, or not reviewing, I was previewing that football game, Wildcards, a couple weeks ago with Absy, and I was like, well, there's some kind of microtransactions, but they're not turned on, which is what happens with reviewers. And then, luckily enough that, they were probably pissed, but the developer contacted me and were like, dude, those look like micros, but everything's free in the game. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. And I was accustomed to micros in sports games. I just thought they were there.
That just reminded me, actually, that's one thing I've been impressed with the WRC, because like in Formula One, when EA took over that game, they introduced like their own store and virtual currency and stuff. None of that's in WRC. No virtual currency, no in-game store or anything like.
That's awesome, man. What else do we got for Game Pass? Game Pass, it's
Wild
ridiculous.
Hearts.
It's like
Wild Hearts dropped.
Wild Hearts dropped.
Oh, did it? I thought it was pretty fun, and
I might actually try that finally.
For the price of Game Pass, honestly, give it a crack. If you like those types of games. I like
Monster Hunter, so yeah.
And I would say, actually, even if you didn't like Monster Hunter, this one is kind of like, it doesn't have the back pain. I call it back pain, because Monster Hunter, it's kind of clunky and everything is slow.
It's got a weight it's got a weightiness to it, yeah.
It's got, so this one is a bit more, for me, without that.
A little more nimble.
So, yeah.
Okay. I'll have to give that a shot.
Other Game Pass games, because...
Vampire Survivor, I like that one a lot, but I know that's the DLC. I mean, the DLC. There's 3 of those, and I guess they just put out an adventure mode as well. The DLCs I think are like $1.50 a piece here in the States, so it's like, even if you have to buy it full price, it's incredibly cheap. And everyone in my house loves it.
One of the things, I mean, let's just be honest, like Microsoft, the OS and their store, they suck balls. Like, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Like,
top to bottom. Top to bottom.
I love any developer. You guys do hard work, but you didn't on the store.
Dude, especially when they tell us they redid the store from the ground.
Yeah, that's a lie. That's like NFL, 2023 to 24.
Yeah.
We redid everything. You didn't redo football, bitch. Like, you didn't. And that's the store.
Yeah.
So I go into the store to play a Game Pass game because there's a lot of Game Pass games I'll play. No Man's Sky, I'll throw that up on the cloud and I'll be like, hell, man, let's, not anymore. But I used to be playing that. And you hit like see all sometimes in the app. And it has these weird lines of games and you have to move your cursor over and go clickety, 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 click. And then sometimes you'll hit back and you really just mean back to that section, and instead it throws you all the way back to the OS starting.
Yeah.
And you're just like, come on, guys, man. Here's the problem with discoverability. Same thing Steam has. There's a lot of games out there that you cannot discover. The reason why they're probably asking has to do with, they watch the podcast, but a lot of it may also have to do with the search/find/workability of the entire Game Pass store.
Yes.
And Microsoft store is balls. Like sweaty. One ball, not even a full ball.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Ravin, $5 super chat. Thank you very much. I have D PS5. Oh, a PS. Yeah, I think he meant A. He has a PS5 and a Switch. Do you think getting a Steam is worth it with a Switch? Oh, okay.
Like a Steam Deck?
Yeah. Let me read this. He was in. He types like me in mobile.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's what he says. I have a PS5. And a Switch. Do you think getting a Steam Deck is worth it with a Switch staleness and PS Plus prices and their hikes? Jeff, tell me if that's right, if that's what you meant. Yeah.
Personally, I would say no, but I mean that's why I haven't gotten it. Because I have the Switch. I don't really see a compelling argument to get the Steam Deck for me.
Yeah, I would just say all of the mobiles are open to you, because I was not going to say get a Steam Deck, but all of the mobiles are open to you, and it really depends on what you want to do, right? Do you want to stream?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can get a good screen steaming machine from like GeForce Now and Cloud for $99. It's when you start jumping it up.
I still need to do that.
Don't apologize, Jeffrey. Trust me, I know what typos look like. Trust me, man. Dude. And the voice to text has got so much worse now on Android. It's even bad on Sam's. Oh, dude, it's terrible.
I haven't tried it.
In chat who were teasing me, and then the next day were like, I didn't say even a tenth of what this thing is saying. Yeah, it's like, and I'm in a silent room. It's picking up like chipmunks outside my window. It's, it just says
autocorrecting to a new topic entirely. It's
like a 3 a.m. grouping with friends where people just start saying shit. What if Fred Flintstone had to get in a fight with Omni-Man? You're like, I don't know, dude. What if? But it's a good question. I think that all those handhelds are good systems, but you got to buy into it unless you go cheap. I mean, you're spending a console most of the time pretty close to a console price. So I play in bed all the time. I love it, but I think I'm the only one here who
I still play the Switch docked all the time. I'm the worst use case for that system.
No, I'm like you, KARAK. The only place I play my Switch is in bed, actually. That would be my use case if I got a Steam Deck, would be to play stuff just chilling in bed.
Isn't it great, too, that we added laziness to this entire discussion? Not only are we playing it, but now we're in bed playing it.
It's not the portability. Yeah, it's the lounging.
Wearing compression socks so you don't get a deep vein thrombosis.
I mean, what portability is still my question, because they aren't really that portable.
No, they're not. Dude, I've got the Asus, and now I've got the Legion, and I've got the 1X player. I got to ship the Legion back, but I'll probably buy a Legion. It's now fixed up to the point to where I really do like it, but they're not portable. They're carryable.
Yeah.
Right? Like you
can port it from one location to another. Yeah.
If you're doing a construction project and you got carpenter pants on, they're portable. Otherwise,
they are literally portable, but practically is a different thing.
Yeah, they're and then I also worry, I don't know about you guys, I worry very much about the game sticks getting hit or broken because they stick out,
Or drift anymore.
Well, drift for sure, but I mean, I'm talking about the physicality and portability. Because drift happens on PS5 and Xbox controllers, so it's like that just happens. But I wish you could unscrew those on some devices. Some you can.
And it's been bad on the Switch in the past, certainly.
Yep.
The drift.
Yeah, it's definitely been bad. We got some other questions. Damon, $5 super chat in Patreon. He says, love the group getting together. That's it. The reason why he put it like that, so do we, yeah, is because we were so confused trying to read the Discord in Wednesday's chat. We didn't even do it because somebody answered the questions. They got confused on what chat they were in. So somebody was like, what game, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, a paragraph. And I was trying to, I got a little tiny screen. I was like, Billion says, KARAK, one choice, Obsidian Protocol or Fallout 4 remake. Obsidian Protocol. But it's not even right. I mean, Fallout 4 is a little newer looking, a lot newer looking. But Obsidian Protocol would be great to get a remake. Fix the crab walk. Fix the control a little bit. I don't think Obsidian Protocol's coming back. I know the actor's not. That guy's done. A load of the bugs.
The AI.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's such a good game though. If like they announced that as a remake, and it wasn't Aspire, not to diss on Aspire, but like, come on, if it was a company that's known for good remakes, I'd be all for it. Tig says, best main theme in a video game currently in your brain. I like this because he knows that we change often. Like when you're playing a game, recency bias comes up, but I still say Dragon's Dogma. The wind is pushing me, man.
So main theme is like main menu?
The main menu theme, like Mass Effect's first one,
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate's first one, Icewind Dale's, Obsidian's going to get a lot of love, at least for me.
Yeah, I'm going to shout out the Far Cry 5 one. Because that one still stuck with me.
Yes, that was.
And since I've been watching Justified, Justified has a similar intro to that kind of. So I'm in that like headspace. Right now.
Dude, and that music's not my jam. Just like we talked, Absy and I spent.
It isn't,
and you
but it
spent a half an hour talking about games that have music we aren't into normally. But yeah. Did you feel that way when you turned it on, Johnny, or did it take a bit?
No, straight away. Yeah, straight away. I was like, oh, okay. That there's like the melody was very, very catchy.
Can I also ask you, Johnny, what about Outer Worlds from Justin Bell?
Also, because I'm a huge melody guy, so it's the melody either really works for me or it doesn't say anything. So it's kind of like a binary thing, and those are ones that cause a reaction immediately when I hear it. And again, it's funny how it's only a few notes. I can hear like 3-4 notes of that, and I'm like, whoa.
That initial progression immediately causes you to go, wait, what?
Yeah, because that's awesome. That song you talk about from Outer Worlds. No, Outer Worlds.
I get it mixed up.
I always get those mixed up.
Something Hope is the name of the song. I forget now, but there is something there with the chord progression and the notes that really speak to me.
Yeah, so good. What about you, Silver? You got any?
I've been listening to a lot of like regular music these days, so I don't have
so you mean like
a video game. Yeah, for sure.
Death metal, goth rock mixed. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Death metal and gangster rap. Yeah, absolutely.
Mumble rap and death metal mixed
I
together.
don't really have a video game theme running through my head these days.
Did you like Cyberpunk's Silver? Did you like Cyberpunk's main theme, or did you like what have we played that we've overlapped?
Not so much like the main theme of like the music, but I did like a bunch of like the soundtrack in general of the game. I thought it was a solid soundtrack overall.
Brian,
I'd say for me another Capcom game.
Go for it.
The original release for Street Fighter 4, which was the more kind of boy bandish kind of intro. I like that, and then they put out they did the same thing kind of like Dragon's Dogma, where they put out like the next like Game of the Year edition, and they changed the music intro like they did for Dark Arisen, and I didn't like it as much. But the first one, just like the kind of synth beginning, and then it was like indestructible, and it would like
that song. I know the song you're talking about.
I love that song for some reason, and I'm not into that genre of music as much, but for some reason it worked really well with the intro cinematic and the ink art style that they were pushing for that, and it's like it was really well put together, and it just worked.
I totally understand that. I'm glad you mentioned the wording. Brian Bow, $7 super chat, number 1. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate the super chats. They do help the channel keep going. As reviews just don't make any money. So I appreciate any of those. Let's jump to a thing that's going to still make money but isn't worth it. Modern Warfare 3.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Steamdeck.
No, they'll make money. Dude, they're like Switch, where they can release
it's already
somebody's going to buy it.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about Modern Warfare. Did you guys see the reviews? Did you guys look at some of these reviews?
Yeah.
Not at all.
They're pretty harsh, man. They're pretty harsh.
Yeah.
They,
dude, even IGN
pretty harsh.
Was like...
yeah.
Because we say IGN is like the mom of reviews. You know, like if your mom were to review your game,
or
she'd be like,
you
know, it's very special. It's
You're gonna grow up to be something. It's weird too, because Modern Warfare 3, we now hear, I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was some news that it was basically they were planning on having it take longer, and the DLC thing, ignoring that, because we do know that that's a thing, despite they're saying it's not, but it's even DLC. It's even considered DLC by the game in one of the achievements considered. So that's
good.
But I guess the game got delayed, so they were like, okay, let's just do this and release it. But I got to tell you guys, I don't know how much of the campaign would have been cut in another or added in a year. It feels to me like what we got of the campaign is more like Battlefield. Remember the Battlefield campaign where you dropped into people's deaths? You basically just played them for an hour, and I think this was Battlefield.
The tutorial campaign.
Yeah, I can't remember which one it was, but you popped in and you were alive. It did some stuff, and then you died, and then it popped, and it did did the little tag of your death, and then it popped to the other one. Are anybody doing Modern Warfare 3?
No.
Not feeling that one.
Okay. Anything to add? I mean, there's not much to talk. It is what it is. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I've never been big on the PvP. I don't know about you guys for those games. They had some fun modes like the zombies. I enjoyed more than others playing with
Black
people.
Ops stuff.
But the pure, like the normal COD PvP, I never got into it. So for me, it's always been more about the campaign, actually.
Yeah.
Big Mac asked something with the failure of Modern Warfare 3, even though I don't know about the failure because it'll probably sell well. Along with Diablo 4, that's not a failure. And Overwatch 2, that one definitely had issues. Do you think Activision Blizzard for MS was a worse purchase than Bungie? No. We're going to talk about the Bungie debacle in a little bit, because Bungie, the entire Sony service game thing is actually a huge issue for Sony, like a massive issue for Sony. Microsoft's got Bethesda, like they've got other companies, but it's a good question. I think Overwatch, like some of the people who play Overwatch, you can speak for me because I don't know, but I think Overwatch also just has all kinds of issues. Overwatch 2, like didn't it pop and there were all kinds of complaints? I think it was like regurgitated stuff. I didn't really track it too much. I just know
that they canceled the single player. They canceled the single player game entirely, and people were pissed about that. And then immediately started charging for quote episodes, which were like a half step measure of single player, and people were not happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing games that aren't doing well that probably should do well, and games that probably shouldn't do well. Lords of the Fallen released, to some terrible reviews. It had all types of tech issues and sold better than I think really anybody expected, even if you like the game. So I think there's a little bit of a disconnect right now. So I don't want to speak on Modern Warfare, because if I do, we'll find out their sales were the number one of all time, or something. You just look like a jackass. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And like, it's just, to me, there's nothing about Modern Warfare 3 that interests me, I guess. There wasn't anything that interested me in what I saw in the campaign, which is what Johnny was saying, because that's what we both go for. I'll play some multiplayer for the review for sure and jump in occasionally, but nothing about it, man. It's just it's just getting destroyed. But we've had that before,
I wanted to ask you about that, like, you guys in general, because I think you've played more sort of war-based games than I have in the past, and I know you enjoy Arma.
I love it.
You enjoy that type of setting.
I do.
How much of it, when you say like, oh, there isn't much here that's different or new or exciting, how much of that is you've seen it all, like you've played all these different games that are in a similar setting, and it's now difficult to do something that's different and fresh?
No, come the fuck on.
There's enough ways to redo that.
They can, and modern, I know Infinite now has love. You know, Infinite didn't get love, but then people who were saying boots on the ground got World War II, and I think they learned their lesson. It's like, maybe we shouldn't just demand these things.
So there's a lot there.
There's a lot there. Yeah, there's new
explore.
war zones. There's new things you can explore. Admittedly, it's all, private contractor companies doing a lot of this because that lets them get away from the nation state stuff. But dude, it's shooting bad guys. You could come up with anything. Yeah, it's just a sheer time, talent, power of the systems, what they want to do.
And it could even be a gimmick, like, we see in the sniper games where it's, 80% of the fun is seeing nut shots on Nazi soldiers.
I mean, I don't know about you guys. Great. I would go far higher than 80%.
Is that far higher? Yeah. I was being conservative.
You're being really conservative, man. Dude. That everything about Sniper 5 in particular, I played with Abzi for the review, and we had such a good time. Like, it's genuinely a fun game. And that's regurgitating the same war we've seen a billion times. So it shows that you can do it. So
it's like you take something that's been done, but you kind of add like one thing on top, whether it's the X-rays or, you would take like one new
element,
on the
maybe?
Whole thing. Yeah, one new element.
What was the last Modern Warfare you guys played?
I haven't played any of them.
Jesus Christ.
I would say Infinite was the last one I played.
Oh wow, okay.
It came with a video card purchase, but it was actually pretty good.
Are we talking like campaign or
campaign?
Campaign for
multiplayer is basically just I'm here to be a target for other people because I'm sure not going to be competitive.
Yeah. I get that. I mean,
I remember the last one I played being that space one. Was that Infinite?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty fun.
Oh wait, what's the one after Infinite? That was the not the futuristic one, but it was
probably one of the Black Ops.
Yeah, maybe it was
I'm
that.
Assuming. Yeah.
Okay. It must have been that one.
Whatever. Yeah. Yeah, man, it's just been a long time, right? It's just like one of those things where they're regurgitated a lot of times. Sometimes they're great. Somebody, in chat, what was the last one you guys played? Somebody said Ghosts. That was a long time ago. Netley, man. Ghosts was like
the last Call of Duty I played. I think was World at War.
One of the best Calls of Duty ever.
I may have played like a single level of the original Modern Warfare, but other than that, not.
Was it World at War, the Kiefer Sutherland one?
Kiefer Sutherland, yeah.
Yeah, man. Okay.
And I think it was me, you, and Roger playing at my place. But it is a 360, right? I think that was 360 for back then.
That is,
that game. Flamethrowers in trenches. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Then you turn it to high difficulty, and you're just dead, and you can't even... You're just like, dead. Yeah. What the... Dead. What
my favorite...
Grenades.
My favorite would still be Call of Duty 2, though. At least I'm playing it on the PC.
The original Call of Duty 2, not Modern Warfare 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Call of Duty 2, World War 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like the first time they did the Normandy landing, right? I think in a game.
I think so.
I want to say. Because that was like the thing.
I think that was the one where they did the scaling, like the Rangers scale, the cliff. I forget. God,
sounds right.
Embarrassing, but I forget where it was.
Well,
like 10 years ago.
The one thing you study. That's what that happened to me last Wednesday, man. I was like, this is some of the stuff I do, and Abzi and I were just stuttering. I was like, I'm sorry, man. I'm just my brain. A lot of people, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 2, Ghosts, Advanced, Ghosts, Infinite Campaign, Infinite, Medal of Honor, Rising Sun.
Was that DLC for one of the...
I don't know. I feel like that's a lie and that doesn't exist. For
someone
reason...
just slipped that in. The lie.
Yeah. But anyway, anything else on Modern Warfare before we move to the Steamdeck? No? So let's talk about Steamdeck.
Do you think they're going to overcorrect now? Okay, super quick. Do you think they're now going to overcorrect and say, okay, the next one, get ready for a 10-hour campaign? We have listened...
Oh, dude, come on, man. The plaque from Cyberpunk.
The template.
The template. We have listened. You know, we whatever that. Oh, my God. If it sells poorly, sure. Yeah. Yeah, if it sells poorly.
Yeah.
Because
but
I think
realistically...
we think Johnny, man, I mean, I'm seeing it already where some of these companies are looking at a game that sells well where the reviews maybe don't agree with it, maybe even the user reviews, and a lot of them are looking at, why don't we just use influencers and streamers instead of reviewers so somebody doesn't put a stamp on our game? And I see that if this does well, there'll probably be, some of that, because they're already a little difficult sometimes to get codes for.
It seems to be going this way, right? It's kind of more cost effective for them to get a streamer to talk about their game on stream, get a bunch of eyes on it, and not really have like the level of scrutiny that a kind of a full-on review would have.
Yeah, it works for them for sure. So let's talk about Steamdeck. So yesterday, OLED Steamdeck die shrink popped up, OLED screen popped up.
Battery life?
Well, it is, but Savage, the Adam Savage's YouTube, Savaged, I think is what it's called. The guy there did some breakdowns of, like, to get the proper frame rates in the newer games, you're going to burn the battery at about the same speed. So it is definitely more efficient. OLED is definitely more efficient. All that kind of stuff is great, but they didn't do any extra power, so it's really like a Switch OLED. I mean, that is honestly what it is, and that's fine.
Okay,
it's what it is.
The mid-gen refresh.
This is going to be a hot take, and I don't know if anybody agrees, but I truly believe this. This is not me taking the piss on it. I'm incredibly happy that the potato level of handheld has another console there. If it had been upgraded, it would have slid into the ROG. It would have slid into the 1X player. That one's expensive. It would have slid into the Legion as a competitor. And if you actually want to play good-looking, like, somewhat AAA titles and stuff, those are the ones you go for. So to me, I'm actually very happy. At first, I wasn't. I was like, what's going on? Why did they do this? Like, this seems like just a money grab. It could be. But I like that potato-level handhelds have another, good one. And so people can get in at super cheap for a streaming one, and for a little bit more, they can get that. And then once they go more expensive on the Steam Deck, they'll probably start looking at the actual powerful ones and try to decide. Because what's weird is some of the powerful ones have bigger batteries, so they actually last longer and can play better. So you have that. Or they have Hall joysticks, which, don't do drift. So I'm happy. I don't know. I wouldn't buy one. But I mean, I'm happy that the competitiveness is not up in that level, because I think it's really confusing right now. Even when I talk to you guys and somebody's like, which handheld, you have to sit down and go, what kind of games are you playing? And is streaming going to be big for you or not? So, but what do you guys think about it? Feel free, anybody. Nothing.
I think I like the fact that the refreshed pricing is pretty similar to the one, the original one. I think that's a good move.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're losing on the manufacturing cost of that, but I think keeping them similar and close makes it more attractive.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I think that's cool. What about, does anybody have a Steam Deck here?
No.
Nope.
All right. So I'm the only one who had a Steam Deck. I like the thumb pads in the Steam Deck, which now the Legion's got one on the right, which I think is good because I'll probably use that more than the left one. I think that those are probably one of their big claims to fame. It's really nice to have that.
Right.
I think it's pretty comfortable. Steam Deck's it's not as comfortable now as some of the others, but it's still very comfortable. And for that price, like Josh said, you just sort of pop in and like it doesn't cost you more to get the OLED or much more. You can jump in, you get that OLED. Mm-hmm. So. People were wondering about the battery price or the battery length. I do want to point this out that now that we have people who are testing it, they're stating that the higher length or the more you have to push it because of the way this is set up, the battery life is still short. So if it lasts 15 minutes longer, that's awesome, but do not expect it to last more. And like I said, Savaged, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. He actually did the math on it. And
Adam Savage?
No, it's not Adam Savage. It's the guy who does all the VR stuff. But he was saying he was looking at the math, going, okay, it's good, and it'll probably be better, but how much better? It is definitely not near. It's not an upgrade, I guess, in that way. I guess what you could say is, don't get into the OLED assuming you're going to be playing your games an hour and a half longer. That's not.
I think it was only like $100 difference between like the 400 milliamp and the 500 milliamp that they're within that same kind of range. It was pretty close, just a little bit more.
Yeah, which is fine because they also don't want to diss on their current owners. You know, you don't want to make it so that that
you bought the trash version, early adopter.
Yeah. So I think the OLED is your biggest bet. I know people in chat have always mentioned that the OLED for the Switch is great. You know, the Switch OLED screen is a good jump up from the original Switch screen, which I think everybody can agree because tested is who it is. Yeah, but I'm just trying to remember of his name. Do you remember his name, Kevin?
Is it Will Smith?
Will Smith is the actor.
Will Smith was no. There's also another Will Smith who's like a redhead. And
gotcha.
And he was with Adam Savage for a while on Tested, and I'm trying to remember if he's still there or if he went independent gamer person.
Yeah,
but I know he was in the VR.
As long as you understand what you're getting into, and especially with these titles where a lot of titles don't run as poorly as a benchmark, right? But then they might go higher than a benchmark if you're trying to overclock them and all that kind of stuff. If you sort of understand what you're getting with any of these systems, it's good. But there's still, when we're talking about portability, other than the 1X player, which is heavy as hell because it's got a massive battery, there isn't one that is, I would say, movie length, you know, unless you start turning things down, whether it be screen brightness and stuff like that.
That was the other thing I was going to ask.
Still need a better battery.
If you're playing, like lounging, like you said, lounging in bed, being lazy, and playing, that weight over time, you know, is that a deterrent to game length? And, you know,
the 1X player 2 and 1 are pretty heavy. Yeah,
pretty heavy. Okay, yeah, versus like a tablet if you're going to be streaming from like a GeForce Now kind of thing, like by comparison.
Yeah. It's pretty heavy. Because I was joking about it on the last podcast where I was like, I don't lift weights to lift weights. I lift weights to hold the 1X player while I'm laying in bed.
Yeah.
It can actually be that heavy. And by the way, that battery is a monster, you know, like a legit monster. I think the other thing also is screen size matters. It just does. Now that I've jumped from 7 to the 8, 7.4, I think, for one, and now 8.4. The bigger screen is such a godsend on some of these. Like, it's just a little easier to play without just sort of trying to adjust too much, where there's a bigger, it's almost like a larger sweet spot, I guess. So, but it's very cool. Yeah. It's just, you know, keep your understand the expectations and understand that, as, again, the guy on Savage had stated, was that these are the current games we're testing. Now there's new games every day. Those games will be pushing more from the GPU, which will be pushing more. So it's like, even the ones with longer battery life will get shorter. So you sort of have to look at what the battery life is now and then go, all right, so in a year, well, you know, or an Alan Wake 2, which pushes the hell out of everything. Right. Like, how's this thing going to run 30 FPS, you know, if that's what you choose to do. But yeah, it's awesome to have. I just think it's awesome to have another competitor in that group that's a little lower price for people.
And I don't know if this is a hot take maybe, but for me, if you were going to say, what is the one thing you would like to improve in the system? The screen. Like, if you could make an incremental improvement on the system, I would rather have a better screen, and OLED is better.
Yep,
I think everybody recognizes that. It also has HDR, and I mean, that I don't know how much it will take advantage of, but a better screen versus, let's say, a bit more power or better cooling, you know, you could kind of come up with any technical improvement. The screen for me is because that's your point of contact with the game, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is that. It's also the game pads. I think not going Hall was the one big problem I had when I saw it, because now, having used them with Hall controllers, it's not even, I mean, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like going from, remember when we used to have a digital pad and one analog? Like the Dreamcast, and then you go to dual analog, and you're like, "Oh, I see."
Now I get it.
I think so. Is it like the tactile? Experience is better.
There's a couple issues with the Legion that you have to sort of all these you have to finagle. By the way, my Steamdeck I had to finagle. None of them come to you like a Switch, right? Where you hit a button and it runs for the most part.
It's just done.
You know, and to get the best performance, there's some I&I stuff you want to run, which, you know, all this all these systems, but. Yeah, it just feels, more tactile, but also slicker. Like the resistance is there, but it's magnetic resistance, which it's so difficult to describe until you do it, what it feels like. It just feels better. It just feels
it's like
better.
A better fidelity kind of thing.
Yeah, and all consoles should be doing this, especially what they charge for Elite controllers, right? Like, or even normal controllers. Elite should have them for sure, but my personal opinion is if I'm buying an Xbox controller for $59, that thing needs to have Hall Sense, Hall Sense.
Let alone 150.
Instantly. Yeah. Let's see. Norman was the person's name, and thank you very much. Battery tech needs to catch up. It does. They also choose smaller batteries on purpose, which is fine. Like, they want it to be comfortable. Let's see, what else do we got? Norman Chan is his name. Thank you. I'll be lounging in my new chair and have a USB charger built in after. So I do have mine plugged into a long USB. One thing people don't realize is almost none of the more powerful ones charge on a normal USB battery bank. You need at minimum 65 watts, if not 100. So you'll plug in a battery bank that you've been using for all your phones and shit, and you'll plug it in, nothing. You'll be like, oh no. And then sometimes because cable power, you have to make sure it's a cable that can handle 100 watts. Because a lot of USB cables can't. So you have to go and grab. So I have specific cables set up when I'm doing testing for the specific handhelds, which just sort of a bitch.
But is it safe to say, do you think that if you already own a Steam Deck, this is not a purchase for you? Like getting an OLED?
Depends on your use case, I'd imagine.
I mean, what would the use case be that didn't involve just wanting it to look better? There isn't really one. So I would say...
Because we did hear from people, when the Switch came out with the OLED, we heard from several people in our Discord who bought... They already had a Switch, they bought the OLED, and
the OLED
were happy with it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
They said it made a really big difference. So I don't know. I can see a lot can for it, but to me, it doesn't seem...
that also the Steam Deck original, Johnny, is known for having a shit screen. That is actually true. Like the original, that's known. Like the Steam Deck, of all the weaknesses you hear compared to other, even G Cloud, which is really just an Android that streams, even that one screen is like 10 times better. So this improvement of the screen is a big deal. That's why I said I think the major reason is just visually. If you are okay with that low power and you want to play, then it's you just have to decide if it's worth the money. But it's not power that you're getting, like, let's say a PS4 Pro versus a PS4. It's almost like that resolution / brightness bump, I guess, would be the easiest way to describe it. You're going to see people getting it just like the Switch Pro, man. Switch Pro had a bunch of people buying it. They're like, dude, man, I want myself a...
But then again, that's screen. Nintendo. That is...
the other part.
Yeah.
I just think, again... It sounds like this is not backhanded. I think it's this is turned out to be very intelligent because it's that low end. If somebody wants to get into semi-portable gaming, they can do it. And they can get an OLED screen that's not stuck to Nintendo Switch, which is old, much older technology. And so, it's very, very good overall. It took me a while to warm up to it because I was really confused. But I think Valve even came forward and said it's going to take more power from the APUs. And by the way, I want to point this out. This is Valve saying this. So I know I've seen people even on our chat be like, not in this chat, but in Discord chat being like, no, Steam is super powerful. It's not. And that's okay. But it's not. Even Valve is saying they need to wait a gen or so to get an actual, true powerful upgrade to go with power. Power right now in a portable always has the negative of battery life, and then that has the negative
or heat
of
and all these things.
Yeah, or the ROG Ally just made like shit, right? I mean that thing was such a piece of. It's so weird.
Is that the one that was setting the cards on fire?
No, it wasn't setting them on fire. It wasn't
they were
ejecting
overheating
them as ninja stars that were on fire. Yeah. No, but it was it's in a bad spot, and also speakers matter. Legion's speakers face up, for instance, not forward. So you have to go in and get another program to turn them up, or use a side program that exists already on the Legion that, by the way, those dumbasses didn't turn on originally. So
what?
Yeah, there's the internal sound chip in there has its own gain and stuff. And if you go in and crank that and adjust the equalizer, speakers sound 10 times better, but nobody knew for 3 days. And people were, even myself, when I talked about it with Abzi, when I initially sort of gave my impressions, I'm like, man, these speakers suck. They aren't as good as ones that face towards you and some of the others, but they are 10 times better than they were when I first got the thing for testing.
Oh, okay.
I was like, oh man, these are trash. You know, they're just like, it's a huge step down. But yeah, that's been improved. Dominic says, it's so funny the Lords always rave about the ROG, and ACG always buries it. I don't know if that's true anymore, or maybe that's just behind the scenes. But, anyway, yeah, if they do, that's great. All power to them. But, I mean, I think the return rate and the problems with the ROG and them themselves admitting that there's a ton of issues, you really can't argue with the company themselves when they apologize. It would be like arguing with CD Projekt Red when they said it cost us $40 million to fix our game. It's like, they disagree with you. It costs a lot of money to fix a bad game. Next up, let's talk about something even worse. Sony. So, Sony bought Bungie. Sony's got all these service games. Now they're delaying at least half of them. Do you guys feel like Sony's library this next year is empty? Because I'm trying to figure out what's coming out from Sony. And I think that they sort of shot their wad in a good way, by the way. You know, we got some great games, but I haven't really heard much.
I don't want to,
that
would be too grossly phrased.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, is there anything that I'm missing from Sony that you guys are looking forward to? Anybody in chat, is there anything, you know, feel free if there's anything that I'm sort of missing from Sony's current stable of games other than Wolverine, which is more just, I think it just started production.
But yeah, because we just got Spider-Man 2, so that was like, what is that, their last first-party game?
Yeah, I don't know. Does anybody know of any Last of Us 2 remaster? Knock it off.
Nobody's be a fourth remaster, you know?
Well, the remaster of The Last of Us 2, yeah. That would be the first of that.
God. Right.
So I don't know if you guys heard, but a lot of people are saying Sony's looking at buying companies to sort of shore this up. Sony was already looking at buying companies. So maybe they knew this ahead of time or what have you. But are there any companies you would want to see purchased by another big company? Like, is there... I would love to see... No, but I do want to point out that Minmay Games, who did Desperados and who did Shadow Gambit, you know where I'm going with this?
Yes.
Like, I would like Sony to step in for that.
Give them some financial security.
Yeah. Because the difference, Silver, is they're gone.
Yes.
Right? Like,
I get
it. We're all against everybody being in the same huge company, but I mean, I don't want them to go away. But Lamplighters League said the same thing.
I get it.
Yeah,
and I mean that. I mean, that was one of the benefits we talked about back when Microsoft bought like Obsidian and In Exile and whatnot, right?
Yeah,
that it gave security to those companies potentially.
Did you? I don't know if you saw this, but a great interview by Brian Fargo recently on a podcast. And that was one of the things he was talking about, is he was just like, you know, Wasteland 3 would have been an issue, and this new game would just, it would not have been made.
I mean, he talked about it even back then when they were purchased. So I'm not surprised.
Silver, correct me. When we had Brian on the podcast, it was prior to Wasteland 3 even coming out, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, it was Bard's Tale, right?
It was. Bard's Tale was just on the verge of releasing, I think.
That's what it was. Yeah. Brian
Either
Fargo
was on the verge
awesome,
or had just released.
Right.
One of those.
Right. I got to get him back on. I have a note to say, because there's only some people I want on. He's awesome. Did Johnny or Cadiz? We'll go with Cadiz first. Did you do Bard's Tale or did you do Wasteland 3?
Not Bard's Tale. I do have Wasteland 3. I started the game and then believe I went immediately, for some reason, went back to Fallout because it was similar enough to that.
Oh, okay. And Johnny?
I did Bard's Tale 4. Loved it.
Okay. So looking at those Time Splitters, somebody just brought that up. I don't know if you guys saw Time Splitters. They've shuttered their doors. So Sony and Time Splitters, to me, feels like a good fit. I could be wrong, but I feel like Sony already doesn't have the first-person / third-person shooter down. So to me, Time Splitters, there's something about Time Splitters, and it could be because maybe it was a PS exclusive and I'm forgetting, but I wouldn't be at all bothered if Sony stepped in and said, you know, Time Splitters, we're going to do Time Splitters.
Wasn't Death Stranding 2 also coming out for next year?
I don't know if it's next year, but that one is still slated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that before Kojima's next project?
Yeah. There is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but that's not first party, right? It's exclusive, but not.
Would they buy Square?
Yeah, but the same with this Death Stranding 2, you would imagine.
Same with Death Stranding 2. I think it's going to be on everything.
Yeah, PC, and there was Rise of the Ronin. I think that was Team Ninja for next year.
Right, we saw a preview of that, didn't we? Yeah, Rise of the Ronin.
Yeah. So there's some stuff, but you're right. Like first party, it's pretty lean.
Yeah. Dodger says Minmay didn't shut down because of financing, though. They pretty much say they mostly shut down because of the stress involved in making games, which, by the way, is financing. Sorry, but I talked to him.
Kind of.
It was. Yeah. No, it was.
Isn't it all like coming down to?
It was. Yeah, I'm talking to him about something right now because they're still sort of pseudo in business and they're doing some stuff. It's all under embargo, but there's some stuff and yeah, the stress of trying to shop your game, right? Brian talked about this. Brian talked
having
about
to pitch it constantly.
Having to pitch it constantly, having somebody take your money away when you are pitched and you're successful, and they're like, "Hey, we got to cancel these games." So
if you miss a milestone or whatever,
because
of circumstances that are beyond your control or something. Yeah.
What was that? Fallout 3, where they didn't hit the Metacritic? That was the rumor, at least. I know some people said that turned out to not be true, but for the longest time, that was a rumor.
Yeah, I mean, that was a contract thing, but I mean more in terms of like the development cycle. If you like miss a milestone in the cycle developing the game due to circumstances, like say COVID or whatever.
Yeah, true. Right. Yeah, or like we saw with Stalker devs had a
the
fire.
Publisher pulls the plug.
Christopher Jetser, $5 super chat. Sony's all third-party games right now. Stellar Blade. Yep. Okay, so we got that. Rebirth, and then Team Ninja's Last Ronin. So, yeah, it's to me, if it's exclusive, it doesn't matter if it's first or third. So we can add any of these games.
Agree.
That's, like to me, adding in Min-May or something like that, and just saying, hey, we're going to give you a bunch of money to make, because I think Desperados is one of the best games I've ever played. The new Desperados. And then I think Shadow Gambit's one of the best stealth games I've played. And to have them go away is gutting.
Really sad.
Dude, it is. It is, because I don't even know, and people in chat or you guys, is there another developer that even makes that kind of turn-based, like the Ninja Blade, or not Ninja Blade, the other one they did?
I mean, we are getting, supposedly, we are getting a new Commandos game.
Okay.
Though I'm not sure who's making it. I don't remember. But they did announce that there's a new Commandos game coming. So.
Didn't the last Commandos do terribly, too? The last RTS version of Commandos? I'm pretty sure that game had...
No, I mean, I think Commandos 3 did reasonably well. But then they moved into made it like a first-person shooter. I think it was Strike Force. I think that's what it was called. Which was okay, but that one I think didn't do very well at all. And that was back when it was the license was done by Pyro Studios, Spanish developer.
Pyro? Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah, man, I think Spider-Man 2 was their big one. It was great. Hopefully they'll have one at the end of next year. Maybe they'll do a third-party exclusive of some kind. That's the thing is, guys, anybody listening, we don't like them, but we have to talk about games. And it's like, if the company does it, I'm still going to talk about it. And I'm assuming we're going to see one or two that are, somehow Square exclusives, like Johnny said, where Final Fantasy really is Sony when you I mean, in the long run.
At the end of the day, yeah.
At the end of the day, it feels like that, right? Yeah. And Final Fantasy Rebirth, right? Is that next year, Johnny? Oh,
I think Johnny had to take a break.
Johnny's gone. Bye, Johnny. Now he says be right back. Thanks, Johnny. I was just in the middle of asking you a question. I'm just joking. But I think Rebirth is next year. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But also, though, didn't they just announce that Final Fantasy 14 is coming to Xbox here in the next year? Like Phil Spencer met with
I believe
Square.
So. Yeah.
So it's maybe maybe it's moving away from being Sony primarily exclusive, but I know the Rebirth series is going to be.
And I mean, 15 was on Xbox as well.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 15 was.
Yeah.
Oh, I must have missed that. Oh, no, sorry. Windows, I was thinking 16. Right? 16 was
Sony only.
PlayStation only. 15, was Xbox, yeah.
I don't know about you guys, too. When a company goes 2 or 3 years late and releases it on the other system, it's always more, to me, it's just like somebody got some serious cash. Like, it feels different than So to me, Sony is Final Fantasy, regardless if a Final Fantasy comes out 2 years later.
Oh, for
on
sure.
Xbox, it's like,
or on PC for that matter. Yeah, they're still paying for the exclusivity initially, so that makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, they've been linked since Final Fantasy VII originally. So
yeah,
when I left Nintendo.
Marco,
which is pretty much an entire generation.
Yeah,
or two now, almost two.
Well, yeah, anymore.
Yeah.
Frankly,
Marco, $5 super chat. Horniest game you ever played? For me, it's Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball. I mean, that is it for me too. Those I own those games and still play them. Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball, or Outlaw Golf, Outlaw Volleyball, Dead or Alive, Dead or Alive volleyball.
BMX Triple X.
BMX Triple X was.
We played a little bit of that.
That was disturbingly.
Yeah, it was just like, well, it was like at the latter portion of that first run of PlayStation games that were trying to do that, and it just seemed like it was forced.
Yeah, it seemed like it was forced. Anybody in chat?
Unquestionably, it would have to be Leisure Suit Larry for me.
No, it's a classic. There you go.
That one's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty horny.
Yeah.
I never play them for that reason, though, man. I just don't. Like, I usually find myself sort of grossed out by it. But volleyball, I enjoy.
Didn't play it for that reason, but like Larry is like the horniest character in gaming.
Yeah.
Quite possibly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is just that, right? I mean, it is just that character.
That's like, that is the theme.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think with those type of games, they also, when you look at the new Dead or Alive, and you look at the moment you unlock a skin, and you just Dead or Alive, you just know. Their skins don't even look the same as everybody else because they're mostly skin, lingerie fighters and stuff. And you're like, all right, I get it. I sort of know who this is for. I mean, they had boob jiggle sliders. So it's like at some point, you just have to buy off on the fact that that's them. You're back?
I am back.
But,
maybe Bayonetta?
We were just talking about horny games. Somebody had asked us in Super Chat for horny games. Bayonetta.
Yeah, I don't gravitate towards that at all. Like, there's some reason why, like, playing a game, I just don't want that in a way. And in fact, it kind of bothers me how so many games have the maiden that levels you up, like the Souls games. Yeah. And it's kind of like, it's almost like a sex doll type,
that is
it's
true.
a bit disturbing.
I never thought about that.
All of them, it's like, let me touch the darkness inside you. We know what's going on, right?
Orgasm for power up. That's true, man. I hadn't put those together. Yeah. Somebody else said Baldur's Gate 3, and I would agree Baldur's Gate 3 is pretty horny.
Oh, yeah. No, they, if not horny, everybody in the party is very thirsty.
Although I did read something about how that was supposed to be a bug or something.
Yes. Yeah. I guess they fixed that with a few updates.
What? Explain this. Explain yourself. What do you mean?
Okay.
Go ahead, Josh.
So basically, when the game first came out, there was a bug in the scripting flag for the characters to talk to you and kind of like build on a relationship. So that it had like inadvertently fast tracked it to what would be presumably something that would be more spread out through Act 2 and 3. They fast tracked it all into the first act, which was hilarious because thinking back playing through Act 1, I'm like, I just show up in camp, I'm talking with somebody, having a normal conversation, and they're just like really just leaning into the hey, how you doing? How you doing? I'm like, dude, I just wanted to learn how magic works. I'm not ready to take that relationship to the next level. I was like, that's cool. Or like, hey, you're doing this dance in camp and it's a cinema. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. All right, I get the kind of concept. All right, let's see if my character can make the dexterity rolls. And then I'm like, oh, I'm just wanting to learn how to dance. I'm not like trying to do that kind of dance with you right now. So easy. We got stuff we got to do. Maybe in an act or two. But apparently that was like that flag process was bugged in that it was triggering way too soon, and that was supposed to be more interactions and more time with the group. It would be like in Mass Effect where like you have to pick between Liara and Ashley 20 minutes into getting that character on the Normandy. It's like it's way too soon, and it makes it seems abrupt in the storytelling. It seems jarring. And
Game
so they've
On
now
says,
fixed that.
I tuned in for the insight into Josh's moves and was not disappointed. Dude, so here's the thing, though. I would also lie completely through my teeth and say it was a bug. I'm sorry.
Oh, you think it was like a design choice at the time?
Come
really?
on.
Okay.
Yes, I don't know. Even if we get the main guy on, because he's been on in the past, I talked to him at the Baldur's Gate event. As a joke, I would say you're lying, but whatever. It is what it is. They were thirsty, though.
Well, maybe they left that setting on because it was in early access and you only had Act 1. They just kind of left that on and then maybe forgot to change that flag set when the main game released.
But I don't think it's as simple as just a flag, Josh, because it's so many things pushing the romance thing. Like I spent an evening with Gail hanging out. We were literally just hanging out like
with
bros.
Gail.
Yeah.
You need like a fireplace behind you, and you and him tonight.
Dude, who brought the wine though?
That's the whole problem. We were just like chatting.
We'll smash the grapes with our
and
ass.
then
We'll make the
wine. The next day he was like, "Hey, do you want to talk about last night?" What do you mean?
Yeah, dude.
We were hanging.
I have had that in a game where I thought everything was sort of normal, and then the next day they're like, blah, blah, blah. And that happened because Starfield's
Thanks for last night.
Starfield's
what do you mean?
is horrible.
Yeah.
Starfield's, I didn't even know we were banging, and I woke up and she's like, "Thank God I do physical training." And I was like, "What the what? What do you even mean by that?" And then I realized that was like our sex post talk.
Yeah, that was the post. Yeah.
Somebody said a game I do want to point out, Atomic Heart's sale bot. And that is true. The upgrade bot is, I liked it because it was on purpose. And, it was like you knew right away what was going on. But that creature is horny.
That was fun.
What, anybody in chat, do you have any other games? I didn't think about the Dark Souls fairy girl, but it is true, man, that like
especially the Bloodborne one, it was basically a living doll, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Man, this is bringing all new attention. Like you're becoming a man. Do you want to level up? Wrap your scroll for protection, and you're like, what? I just want to sharpen my sword. Oh, we'll sharpen your sword.
Oh no!
Feed me that XP. Yeah.
You can pound it on my forge.
But it's also like how you. Oh God! It's like if you're looking for it, you'll find it because in Lies of P, one of the vendor ladies that upgraded your weapons, she says, "I know my way around a weapon." And just like the way I said it and the face I made,
exactly.
that,
inflection.
But to me, that's how I read it. So, it also, it's in the eye of the beholder in a way too. So,
Game On says the first Witcher had collect a nudie cards. And they did. That's not the only game. There's another game. You're absolutely right on that, Game On. There was another game that had that. And I remember being surprised because, again, I don't need it.
Mafia 2 had like Playboy covers.
Playboy covers. That might have actually
was it 2 or 3?
That was 2.
It was 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because 3 was with Franklin or Lincoln. I always get this mixed up with GTA.
Yeah.
Lincoln.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was much.
Oh, okay.
Maybe there was, but I don't think so. Where it's like it's just bush. You open it up and it's just a bush pops out. Yeah. They did have some jokes in Mafia 3. By the way, Mafia 3 is pretty fun now. It's still got graphics issues, which they've never fixed. But as just to sit down and play it for the hell of it, not a bad game to get in for $5 or $10.
Okay.
You wouldn't want to get in at full price. But I think Baldur's Gate. Come on, guys. Come on. Yeah, bug my ass. Well, that sounds dirty too. But no, it's not real. It's not real. You guys did that on purpose. It's fine. Moving on from there, back to the Sony stuff. Yeah. So I think Warner Brothers and Sony are sort of the same convo here. So Sony says we're going to lay back a bit on the service games and sort of delay a bit. And then what was this? This would have been Thursday, I think, of last week or whatever. Maybe it was Tuesday of this week. But Warner Brothers then announces we're going full service game. And can I point out 2 things? One, if I've worked PR before, and I'm telling you right now, I don't know how PR let that message get out. Because you don't have to tell people at all.
You can let show them with the releases.
You show them with the releases. They announced it. Like, they legitimately had a full announcement where it's like, we are now going to service games. And I got to tell you guys, man, I don't get it. Like, with the current trend of social media and everybody jumping, if it were me and I knew that decision was coming and somebody came to me and said, this is our PR announcement, I'd be like, no, it's not. What are you talking about?
Service games has a lot of negative connotations.
It's all negative.
When you say
there's not even a positive connotation about service games right now. Like, even if they're good.
Well, like the Suicide Squad preview was like raked over the coals.
Yeah.
The Gotham Knights did not release to any sort of acclaim.
Right.
Because of its live service functionality. So it's the market doesn't seem to be there. The sentiment is really negative in most cases, to the point where they have to like either backtrack or like, oh, we're pulling this and redesigning it. It's just like, that's a bold statement in the face of that, specifically with WB games. Yeah,
we'll see how it plays out. Cotton. Let's see how it plays out. Yeah, right out of dodgeball, man. I don't know.
But you know, when you say bold, you can mean two things. You can mean either.
I mean dumb.
Like
smart, I mean sarcastic. 100%. Yeah.
Because it can be a bold move to like go against 20 dudes in an alleyway.
Yeah, bold move.
Yeah,
that's on your move gravestone. It was a bold move.
It was a bold move. Yeah,
yeah. Headbutting that elephant was a bold move. You know, but yeah, it was that was one of the dumbest announcements I've ever seen in all of gaming. By the way, in fact, we've talked about PR in the past. Back when like Silver, myself, and Reg, prior to even Johnny, there were a couple I remember that I was really on fire about with PR, and I was like, I don't understand how anybody, and I would say this one's worse, where I read it during, it was live during Wednesday podcast. That's what it was. It was at 1:00, and I read it and had to read it like 5 times and check if it was a fake WB account, because I was like, nobody's going to announce that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. It's just nobody is named Warner Brothers. I don't know, man.
It's very weird, because those are usually carefully curated so that they are either generating some good faith, or they, you know, there's some compromise there, right, in the statement where they're getting something out of it. But this one, there's no upside.
Well, or at least timing checked. And it's like you have Sony who's saying the exact opposite.
Yeah, right.
And then you have Warner Brothers come and go, oh, no, we got this, don't worry.
Yeah, it's kind of like read the room, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, in a very obvious, you would think, way. That's like, how did you not? Yeah. You're in the same industry. You're making games for the same platform in a lot of cases. Why would you not check that?
It's like someone's mom died of cancer recently, and you're dropping a cancer joke.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, give it a time. Give it some time. But not only that, I would say give it some time and then just put the infinity symbol next to it, as in never fucking do it.
Just don't make a cancer joke.
Yeah, because here's the thing: service games can be good. There is a couple that I like. Division is a service game. I think we can agree, and Division is phenomenal. But Division is phenomenal, and the first thing I mention when I describe it being phenomenal is that despite it being a service game, it's phenomenal.
Yes,
that is a negative connotation. So. It's like, dude, what are you doing? Even the good games are considered
have to overcome the negative,
though.
Yeah.
That's an abusive relationship.
I think there's also this problem with the social media environment where people are no longer demonstrating things by actions, and they are just talking about stuff.
Yeah,
they're saying
that's true.
They're talking about what they're gonna do every step of the way before they actually do it. Where like before it used to be the opposite, where you just execute on a great game and then people talk about it as a result. But now it's kind of the other way around, where we're talking about a game before its inception. Remember Wolverine, we saw a picture before it was ever, a thing at all.
So by that same token, then is that a way for them to say, okay, we're going to do this test out here, we know that this is negative, but like what's the level of negativity? And then like it'll be the thing, they put out this tweet, there's a lot of negative press, and then we'll say, oh, we've listened to the feedback, we've heard gamers, they're just, and we're not going to do live service games in this fashion. They don't care. Okay,
no, it's not that they don't care, it's that PR now has all this SEO and shit that they can track, and I can tell you that here's what's going to be remembered by gamers. Oh, now we can't trust them because they reversed even on that. They don't know what they're doing, which is what Sony is facing right now. And Sony is because of the golden goose.
Okay.
And even they are getting hammered unbelievably hard. And this happens when any switches occur. For example, Sony was out there saying cloud is not the future. We don't believe streaming can do anything. Here's our cloud device. And you're like, wait, what? You're doing cloud now? And so then you have to, I said device. The Portal is not a cloud device, but they have the cloud service. And so you're just like, okay, so now we got to look at, by the way, that's why I think when they're trying to shoot the shit with their competitors, it makes sense for big console makers to sort of pap back and forth. But WB has nobody. It's WB Games. It's Hogwarts. Now, the big question for the next Hogwarts isn't going to be, it's good, but it's written by an author we don't agree with. Now, it's good, but it's written in a world of an author that we don't agree with, and it's a service game. Or if it's not a service game, yeah, but will it be? You know what I mean? You're calling into question 10 things instead of one now. And one was, they sold well, but let's be honest, we saw a lot of chaff. Like there was when Hogwarts came out, and Hogwarts turned out to be great. And I don't know about you guys, even if you don't love it, I'll just say it turned out way better than I think most of us thought.
And I think to your point, it largely cashed in on the notoriety. With the sales numbers.
Almost
definitely got people talking.
Almost like where it worked for them is what you mean.
Yes,
like interest almost. Yeah. Silver, do you like any service games? I almost called them silver games. Do you like any service games?
I enjoy plenty of service games. Like I've enjoyed For Honor. I've enjoyed
Avengers.
Like Division.
Somewhat.
I did somewhat enjoy Avengers as well. Yeah, but
I tried to.
It did wear thin. I think that was less because I enjoyed it less because it was a service game and more just for like the fundamental gameplay aspects of it.
Right. I get that.
But a game like For Honor, I actually did enjoy the service aspect of the continuing content and new stuff that came out for it. Like you could kind of call Breakpoint a service game as well for its run. It did run kind of as a service game because it did undergo some pretty major changes as well. Ghost Recon Breakpoint. I did enjoy that as well. And that was actually sort of a single player service game, even though you could play.
Thank you. That was going to be my question. Going to be my question. Yeah, because I couldn't remember.
But I've definitely enjoyed service games. I think they can work, and I think the addition of giving a game a prolonged life cycle can be interesting and can work. It just depends on what the life cycle is and how the ways in which you monetize that life cycle.
Great.
Warframe is one somebody mentioned.
Yep.
For
Warframe
sure. Yeah.
Hugely addicted to that.
And Warframe
I enjoyed
is
it back
free.
in the day.
I think that with some of these, we have to, what Silver just mentioned, is it a single-player service game? That starts bringing into questions like $60 day one, all this stuff. And then you get Warframe, which I believe is free.
Yes.
And so there's a difference in jumping in. Game Pass gets away with it because it's Game Pass. And I don't mean get away with it. I mean, you're like when you buy
it lowers the barrier to entry.
It lowers the barrier to entry. But WB doesn't have any of this stuff. That's another thing. WB isn't even known for a lot of this stuff. And so it's just weird that they announced it, especially coming off of a couple of games that were trash or not great. Yeah, I don't know, man. We live in a weird world where they're announcing that.
MMOs were like the original service games.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah. And that's the thing, though, is like when I consider a service game, let's say it's 2 or 3 person co-op, maybe a clan, but you have to be online for the only single player. Then you start questioning, and they'll give you reasons: save games, cheating. I actually do understand some of their reasons. It's just that we almost always find out those reasons when somebody hacks it or pirates it, and then you play it, and you're like,
or resells it.
I mean,
Hitman was a service game.
The big example there, precisely Hitman.
Exactly, where you're just like, dude, what is going on? Half the stuff doesn't work, like for no reason, because then people did mods that put it all working, and you're just like, all right.
And you have Payday 3 now, where people are not happy with it being online only as a service game.
I wasn't aware of that. Sup, chat, everybody in chat, thank you very much for showing up. We appreciate it. If you get a chance, tweet this out, join the Patreon, that kind of stuff. It helps with the channel, with all these guys, getting them on. And, just keeps us solvent, which is what WB is not going to be. Now they'll be solvent forever.
That's right.
Microsoft and WB, this is the weird thing. The FTC leak showed that Microsoft had multiple meetings with WB, and people were so interested in the Sony Microsoft stuff and the Nintendo attempted purchase, which, by the way, Phil Spencer was just sort of being like, yeah, it'd be great. But I'm sure in the back of his mind,
it's not like it would be great. You should go follow this down and be like, no, that'd be awesome if we could do that.
He tried to have some meetings. It didn't work. But with WB, they did have meetings. And so, WB was looking to, as far as I know, to sell off their game. That's what we're hearing, is to sell off their game stuff. So I guess as a whole, we don't know what they're doing. We know they patented the Nemesis system. We know that they've done I think anti-consumer's thrown out way more than it should be. That way, if I use anti-consumer, I mean it. I think Nemesis and patenting that is pretty anti-consumer, where you look at it and you're like, wait, what? I do sort of understand their patent for it.
Did they ever go anywhere with that, though?
No, they didn't even put fucking Nemesis in their own games.
I know. It's like,
I don't know.
It seems wasteful
it could have been that they thought they were doing another Lord of the Rings, maybe. And so they didn't want a car game or whatever.
A Golem Nemesis system
doing right now.
Yeah. You wonder who?
Monolith. The guys who did developed the Nemesis system and Shadow of War, and did a bunch of first-person shooters back in the day, including No One Lives Forever. And
Shogo, I think.
Yeah, Shogo. They did a Tron game as well.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that was a good game. That was a fun game.
I'm going to look them up right now. American video game developer in Kirkland.
It was a Tron 2.0.
They currently have a Wonder Woman game to be announced. The last game was 6 years ago, Shadow of War.
Yeah, Shadow of War. Because I haven't heard anything from them really
they've been sitting for a long time, man.
Maybe it's in the Wonder Woman game.
And they used to be one of my favorite developers, because they also did Aliens vs. Predator 2, which I think is probably the best Aliens vs. Predator game.
Yep, they did that. Overall, they did Shogo, which is one of my favorite games of all time. Did Monolith?
No One Lives Forever as well.
Thank you.
Amazing.
That's
game.
what I was just gonna. I couldn't remember if it was if they did that, but they did do 1 and 2, or just 1, or they did both.
1 and 2, both. Yeah.
Somebody said they did Fear.
The Fear
series.
So
they also did Fear.
Yeah.
They did the first one. I think maybe
they didn't do 2 and 3.
No, I think think a different side developer took one of those. One of them.
That could be why the tone was different. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I don't know.
They returned for one of them. I don't remember which one, but one of them was outsourced.
Yeah, they sort of switch around on the outsourcing for some of those. But yeah, they do good games. WB has obviously, I liked Hogwarts,
Yeah.
So I'm just speaking for myself, but I think they did a great job on Hogwarts, and I'd like to see more of them. But right now, I just don't know if tomorrow they're going to release an announcement saying, we're sacrificing children, and you're like, all right, I don't even know if it'd be that strange anymore. Because that's quite literally one of the worst business decisions I think I've seen in a long time, for somebody to announce that. I mean, it's announcing it into the hatred.
Yeah, I just don't see what the upside is, or what the perceived upside at the time was going to be. Is like, oh, who's going to be excited about this?
I guess they could have preempted a leak, which is what happened with GTA 6's announcement.
That could explain it.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be that somebody was doing an expose, to write their next book or something.
It's not the first time that something, although like from a company on this size, it certainly is notable. But I think there's been a lot of instances, certainly in recent years, of just executives just putting out, even be it past like, with no real consideration to the public relations department or something. They just think, oh, I'll just put this out there, and then it's completely boneheaded and blows up in their face.
Oh, like the Unity stuff.
Yeah, and also
is true.
Right at the moment with Creative Assembly, who's currently in a firestorm with its community.
With Pharaoh, or what's it called? Is it Pharaoh?
Yeah, Pharaoh with Pharaoh, the expansion pack for Warhammer 3, Shadows of Change, and the whole cancellation over I've already forgot what the game was called. The PvP shooter that got canceled.
Oh, that got canceled. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see some of these switches. Go ahead.
Man, what occurred to me, how we laugh about villains telling us their plans. In shows and games and stuff like that. I'm like, listen, WB, don't tell us your plans.
That's a good assessment.
You have a good idea?
That is pretty spot on. That is pretty spot
on. Mr. Bond, let me tell you.
Mr. Bond. No, listen, if you have an idea and you believe it's a good idea, execute on it. People will talk about it when it comes out. I love when people just go to work, man, and they're not talking about what they're going to do. No, they when it's ready, when it's mature, they come out and they say, hey, we got this game. And they lead with the game instead of we have this idea, or we're doing this direction. don't tell me about it. Work on it. When it's mature, make a splash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
and don't tell us your plans.
Yeah, that is true. Moving on to something positive. Let's talk about Remnant 2. So Remnant 2, they got their new DLC coming out. They've done at least 1 or 2 classes prior to this, and then they got the new DLC, which is Fire Magic User Witch-looking dude.
Ritualist?
I can't remember his name. Ritualist. There we go. And Remnant 2 is one of those games that I just consistently have to sort of Remnant 1 had some good parts, but it was pretty rough. And I feel like 2 really pretty much improved on everything. And admittedly, there was only a step up on some aspects of it, but it's good to see them. They do good. I know that 1 or 2 DLCs haven't been the best. There was a story one. I saw some people were like, "Oh, this isn't the greatest," but overall, I'm really happy to see what they do. And this the new class looks cool, man. They look like a Bloodborne / witch mixed together.
Witch hunter.
Yeah, yeah. They look like they had really cool moves. I don't know.
Yeah.
If anybody's done the other DLC, maybe their DLC for classes sucks, but that's one of the things that was a highlight to me was Remnant 2, finding out there were secrets nobody had seen, 2 months later, where people are still, there's the occasional class found. They've stated, I think recently even again, that people haven't found everything. I just think that's sort of cool for that game.
And it's almost not even the same game, man, with a different class. Well, it depends on the class, but some of them are so different.
Yeah. Yeah, they do a balancing in a different way than Diablo, because Josh was talking about like Diablo. In the past, it was like these certain characters played a certain way. Then now they sort of opened it up, and Remnant sort of started out where even because we all had different characters. I think Josh and I overlapped and both had the dog for a while.
Yes,
right. But
when we played,
you felt
but you
like
had another character as well.
Yeah, and you felt like you could play pretty much anybody, and beat the game at minimum, and then do well, and sort of. Maybe farm stuff you needed, but it didn't feel locked off. They did a really good job on that. I don't know if anybody in chat hasn't played it, and I don't know what it costs now. Remnant's probably on sale. I could be wrong, but I think it's worth checking out if you haven't done so.
It looks like this might be more of a caster class.
And then next up, Rusted wants to know. These are people in the Discord, the patron Discord, who ask questions. So we get to theirs first. He says, "What's the deepest you've gone into a game IP?" Not just playing the games, but reading tie-in novels, etc. And so let's not go backwards. It can't be comics to Spider-Man. It has to be a game IP. You know what I mean?
First,
it has to be game first, and then if they made a comic, that's fine. So is there any that you guys have dived into?
There are lots. I do that quite often.
Read audio or listen to audiobooks or read novels or comics for games?
Not listen to audio, but especially wikis, dig deep
dive into
lore
wikis
and characters and stuff. Partly because I enjoy sort of immersing myself in the world and kind of role playing and stuff. So getting an idea of who the character I'm playing is, how the various power dynamics run and stuff like that. I'll tend to do that quite frequently.
Chat, what about you guys? Johnny, any IPs that you've delved into?
It's pretty rare for me to read extra stuff, but I did read a novel from Final Fantasy VII. It was called Two Pasts, or like a tale or traces of two past, which was backstory for Tifa and Aerith from Final Fantasy VII, and that was pretty interesting.
What about you, Josh?
It would be Halo, and I think the weird thing is that we played, I think it was either Halo 2 or Halo 3, and then they had a book series that started to come out. Novelization that but it covered Halo Reach before Halo Reach actually came out, and it was slightly different than the game was. So that was kind of interesting to kind of do. But I think that was the usually the most. I mean, technically, the Witcher series, I played the games before I read the books, but that's not really in the spirit of the question. But I think Halo is probably the closest to answering that question dead on. Was the one that really
that's true. I did that too, because I played Witcher 3 and then I read some of the novels.
Did you find, was that an enjoyable experience hitting the novels afterwards, or did you find that your version of Geralt or the version?
It was very weird because I think like you, I like audiobooks, so I actually did the audiobook version of a couple of the novels, and the Geralt voice was so different because it was like a North British accent.
Damn.
Oh,
you might
it was
have
like
just
a
said
deep,
Aussie.
just like a deep British, so different, right, from the game that it was like hashtag not my Geralt type thing. Where it didn't fully work for me. I liked some of the stories, but I didn't get into it, which is why I didn't continue. I only listened to one or two novels in it.
So chat's mentioning, of course, Remedy games, which I will admit I dive into, but my big ones are, weirdly enough, Assassin's Creed and Far Cry. Their novelizations usually are prior to the game, and so 5's novelization, it's not the novelization, sorry, 5 is a prequel, the book. And you get to meet Joseph Seed as the character meets Joseph Seed and meets Faith, and then goes into the bar and all this stuff. And then I played the game afterwards, and I was like, this is crazy. It's obvious the guy played the game, so he knew where items were in the bar, and so he describes some painting or even the machines. He even describes why the voice machines all have voices left on them, which is like a trope for MP3. Listen to the guy dying. But you noticed in Far Cry there wasn't as many of those. It was more like get out of town, and he actually describes the rising tension in that city, or in that, it's not a city, it's more like a county. And that worked. Division worked. I would say Ubisoft does a pretty good job. Some are terrible. They're terrible. Like some of the Assassin's Creed side ones are horrendous. But there's a lot of really good ones too. I'm like Johnny though. I love audiobooks, but man, you get the guy. Like, if I was reading Final Fantasy, people would be like, this ain't for me. Like you said, hashtag KARAK is not Tifa. You get some of those voice actors and you're listening, and you're like, dude, novelization's much easier for me when it's based on a game because I'm too worried I'm going to get a character's voice. It's like Chicken, another Discord patron. I'm sure there are some games that do this, but would you be more interested in collectibles if they led to a side mission or quest line instead of being there with no purpose? Yes.
100% yes.
100% yes, right?
Yeah. Or if I could do something with the collectible, like some games you can maybe place them in your house or in your car or something like that.
Yeah, true.
Like maybe it's a bauble you can put somewhere. That type of thing I like because they become mementos. Like, maybe you get that at the end of a side quest and then you see that in your house and you kind of relate back to that. That I like. The stuff that just lives in your inventory and it's a picture, I can't connect with it, man.
Me neither, man.
Yeah, if it's a weapon around, or or some sort of project.
And I don't care, by the way, like from software fans, which I am a fan, but some people are gonna come out of the woodwork, like the descriptions in the items in your inventory or collectibles, they're giving you lore. Dude, that's the least enjoyable way for me to absorb lore is through reading a description of a collectible or an item.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to go to another location to find the lore. Like Destiny kind of burned me on that concept. Is like, no, I'm not really interested in going to this website to find out what's going on in the world. I'm more interested in the game showing me what's going on in the world.
Yeah,
right.
I don't mind.
That's better storytelling.
Oh, go ahead. Go for it.
I think for me, it's not really a question of interest so much because I'm unfortunately too much of a completionist. The interest is always going to be there. If I see a 95% rating in an area, I need to click it up to the 100. But I would certainly appreciate them more. I appreciate them a lot more when they actually have like a tangible purpose or reason to be there. And they're not just like a backpack stuck onto a high rise for Spider-Man. It's been there for like 15 years without anyone apparently noticing.
That sandwich has gone bad.
The best part is when I grab something in a game and I read that little bit of text and you're like, yeah, I get it. This ring might be from the Shadow Wraith of Oogla Blah. And you're like, whatever. But then you go home and like the ring is in a ring case or something like that. That is almost all I need. I need a physical representation because if I'm carrying, I have
like the collection at your house or
because if you have a junk collection in your inventory, you're like, okay, wait a minute, why do I have to drop a weapon because I weigh too much, but I have 7,000 fucking MP3 players? Like, why can't I drop all this trash? And a lot of games won't let you drop those, but they will still have you handle inventory weight. And you're like, I have an entire other inventory of this bullshit. Why am I carrying around like 10 pounds of papyrus? Like, I'd fucking burn that.
an entire produce section of food.
Or an entire produce section of food. Yeah, and it's like, but you can look at it. I was able to look at it the first time. Like after that, you need to do something with it. Josh L, $5 super chat. Any video game documentaries you guys really like? Mine would be the Psychonauts 2. I think that's going to be like my answer for the rest of my life. Yeah, it's like 30 episodes of them making Psychonauts 2.
Obsidian made one for the making of Pillars of Eternity. That's actually I found pretty good.
Kickstarter probably back in the day, right? That was when they Kickstarted Pillars?
back when it was a Kickstarter project, and when they released it, they made the documentary freely available.
Dude, I haven't seen that. Is that just it's on YouTube now? I'm sure it's free now, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, I'll watch that one for
sure. I'll dig it up for you and
could you? Because that I like them. I like the way they do stuff. They've always had really interesting behind the scenes, even though I can never pronounce the owner's name. I think that isn't it Farquaad?
Fergus Urquhart.
Fergus Urquhart.
That's how I would pronounce
Shrek.
It. Yeah. Guess.
Yeah, I was close. Anyway, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, if you can send that to me, I'll watch that for sure. Josh, do you guys watch documentaries for games?
Yeah, I do. For game specific, I remember watching the kind of behind the scenes for Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice.
Right.
Where they talk about, like Dev Diaries and the girl that played Senua getting into it because it was, she wasn't an actress, right? Initially, she kind of just stumbled into the role, and it was awesome how all of that came together.
Yeah, those were all good. I did the Hellblade ones as well. What about you, Josh? Any?
Not usually much for documentaries. I think the closest I would like, there's a GDC talk that I watched that was Mick Gordon talking about the sound design and his creative process for the Doom 2016 game, which I thought was interesting, but I'm also into metal, so that was kind of fun to watch. And then from time to time, each year, Warframe will put out like, hey, here's our sound design walkthrough of how we come up with the sounds of the game, and here's some of the mocap stuff, and they use people who like employees in the who are like either in the community or community managers or devs or programmers and stuff to do some of the mocap stuff and some of the voice acting and stuff. It's like, all right, that's kind of cool. I like to see how like they're doing that locally internally versus hiring out as much, but it seems to be mostly sound design stuff, which is odd because I'm not usually huge into sound, but for some reason, some of the like, how did you come up with this sound that is iconic to the game? Like, oh, it's this was sampled with this and cross-referenced with this and then played back through here. Like, that's wild. But that's about as deep as I get.
I think Mick might have also done Atomic Heart. I could be wrong, but Atomic Heart had someone about the use of quads. And I was reading the Twitter, and even, I do understand a lot of music theory, and even I remember talking to Absy because he makes music. I'm like, dude, you got to read this because this is like pretty legit high-level stuff, because even other producers and music writers were like, dude, that's like pretty legitimately awesome. And then we talked about it in the last podcast, Dying Light 2, they talked about how they made their music with apocalyptic bike. I always bring up where they made a bike out of apocalyptic parts. And the entire music score has something, like the spokes makes a sound or whatever. And you're just like, damn, that's all. And by the way, it's still musical. It's just like, it's discordant a little bit. Certainly when you turn it on, it's a drearier opening soundtrack, which makes sense for a game that's sort of zombies. But looking in here, I would also tell anybody, GDC is almost always free. And GDC has... if you want to understand why Ubisoft has issues making an Assassin's Creed, just going to tell you right now, man, like their shit is incredible. When you start reading about how they make a world, like there's a lot more, I already had respect, but you get a lot more sort of understanding of the grind of trying to make a level. Yeah. When they're like running bots to figure out if a tree is too high because now you can't slide down a rope, and you're like, I thought a person was just doing that. They're like, no, we have the person do this. We use like AI or we use machine learning to do this, or water, where they'll talk for 5 hours about making Valhalla's water. And I was like, when I was done, I was like, that might be the coolest thing ever. Your brain just sort of is like, I thought it was a water. I thought you just said apply water. To this place.
Copy water, paste water.
Yeah, I love. That's one of the reasons why I like to have
collisions
them on.
And why like a 5-inch like sidewalk becomes an invisible wall all of a sudden.
Yes.
You know?
Right. Yeah. Collision detection. Yeah.
And they'll even talk about like this happened with Outer Worlds, where they found the bug that if somebody was on a ladder and you loaded the section, if an NPC was on the ladder, it broke the game, and they could not figure it out because they thought it had to do with the main guy. And then they found out later it was actually if an NPC is on a ladder right when you did something, it screwed something up. And I was just like, oh, wow, you probably couldn't even test for that. You know, you would try to test for it, but you might not even know there's an issue until later in your save game. It's one of the reasons why, yes, crashes to me matter on consoles, but when I see a bug, and I will report bugs, I also understand that, like, the occasional bug is probably going to happen when you get it, you know, if you're in some massive open world game.
I mean, especially, because, I mean, games these days are more advanced than ever. They have more variables than ever. So there's a lot more stuff that can break.
Yeah, it's very cool to read that stuff. So I would suggest all those places. Next up, Johnny wrote some comments here about what he wanted to talk about. And one of the things he talks about here is Risk of Rain returns plus new DLC coming out for Risk of Rain 2. Can you talk about it real quick while I let these dogs out? I'm listening.
Yeah, so there are two things there. They have like a festival going on. One, they did a kind of a remaster of the original Risk of Rain, which was a 2D side-scroller roguelite that was well-loved, but of course quite niche, right?
Okay.
It's come out, it's cleaned up, it looks quite nice. So for people who like those types of games, that's a great game to try out and get into. And I think it was like $10 on Steam.
Oh, nice.
So that's a good shout if someone wanted to try it out. I know a lot of people played only Risk of Rain 2. So if you were curious and you wanted to try out the you know, where it came from, you will find many of the familiar mobs you're used to, but in 2D, which is kind of fun. And soon they're coming out with a new DLC for Risk of Rain 2, which will have new playable characters and new areas and stuff like that. They already came out with one DLC, I believe this year. It was Survivors something, and then this one has a different name, which I don't remember. Sorry, my information is not good today.
So looks like the first one is Survivors of the Void.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's a new one. Yeah,
I'm looking for that.
Yeah, there's
Realms?
a new one. No, is it Void something?
Oh, I saw that somewhere. Hold on.
Let me confirm.
Survivors of the Void was the one we already talked about.
Yeah. So, okay. Survivors of the Void came out, and then Seekers of the Storm is the new one that's coming out soon. So they announced it. There's it's cool to see because the original team moved on. The team who actually created Risk of Rain and Risk of Rain 2 moved on, but the IP stays with Gearbox, I believe. And there's, you know, a new team there that's continuing to put out content for it.
Okay.
And here I am. Okay. So there's a new team. When you said a team left, what do you mean?
So it was originally 2 or 3 guys who did Risk of Rain 1, and those were also the same guys who did Risk of Rain 2. They learned how to do 3D stuff all, you know, by themselves. But they had the power of Gearbox for Risk of Rain 2 to back them for QA, you know, all the processes and the pipeline and everything. And now I think they are completely hands off, and it's kind of rolling.
I wasn't aware of that.
Gearbox.
I watched you and maybe it wasn't you, I think it was Absy was doing Risk
Might have
of
been
Rain.
Absy and I playing
Might have been
on Discord one time. I think it's one of the most fun games of this type.
The
the
well, right?
roguelite shooter.
Oh,
it might have been.
Maybe
it might have been. Mm-hmm.
And then another question: if you guys could Frankenstein a handheld PC and take the best parts from each device, like the screen, make it one ultimate machine, which parts for which device would you choose? So Cheeses has good questions, but that is really in depth. So I'll just say this: if there was one part of all of handhelds that you would like to see improved, what would it be?
Portability.
Yeah, that's mine too. Yeah.
The ability to put it in my pocket, like the old Game Boy Advance SP.
You know how the phones fold now, Silver? Like how
there you go.
hold up your Switch. Whoops. Johnny, can you imagine that? That would be a disaster. Johnny, do you have one?
For me, it's funny because when I thought of portability, I thought much more about the weight rather than the
true. No, that's the size. That is one
because I could put it in a backpack and I'm okay with that. But the thought of having something like that's pretty heavy in my hand, I know that that's going to be difficult to game for, a while. It doesn't matter what position I try, it's just always going to be difficult. But I definitely notice when I have my tablet, which is pretty light, tablets are light. That's a big difference maker.
War Pigs in the house. What's up, gang? What do you got, Josh? Anything you'd improve on handheld?
I would say it's just battery life in general. And I know that's a limitation of the technology, but
it doesn't matter. Battery life.
I would say literally just battery life would make it more attractive. Like, hey, I don't need to dock this thing or plug it in for an entire day of constant use. That would be like, okay, now I'll really look into this.
Yeah. We are being asked a question that I do want to hit on real quick because I did a video about it. But Dominic Webb says, I'm curious about your takes on Larian saying that while developing for the Series S, they found a way to optimize VRAM usage by 34%. That will benefit all platforms. So it will benefit all platforms. I want to point that out. But it's going to benefit the ones that are hurt the most, the best, and the others will most likely. So if you improve something, it's almost like what we're talking about with handhelds. If we improve the battery, that means the screen might still be not as good. If you improve the weight, then you can't do the portability, or you can't do like the screen. There's all this different stuff. So yes, it will improve, and that's awesome. What you will see, just so you know, is other companies that work on the Series S using it. And I think that that's the most important part to take away is that, we have Johnny has a 3090, I've got a 4090. When you want to do 4K 60, he might need to make slightly different adjustments than I would make, but we both have powerful cards. So the powerful systems, the Series X and the PlayStation 5, are already at a point to where you might not see them take huge advantage of some of these improvements, but you will see the lower level ones do that. And regardless, everybody's going to look at what they did, which is phenomenal, because whatever they figured out is almost like hiring a tech at your company to just try to do it. And Microsoft wasn't, because their games that they were doing, they were already making for those, where Larian, that's one of the things, it's a little like a mod. You hear somebody say, well, this mod did it. Why did Bethesda not put DLSS in for Starfield? And it's like, well, the mod crashes my game. So obviously DLSS with the mod is, might not be perfect. So there's a reason why they have, for example, Starfield currently in beta for DLSS, because it's obviously not just throwing it in. There's something there that, for what the way they render. Yeah. So it's awesome stuff, man. That's what you want. Because the more people who can get into the low level, even if you don't have it, this is why I like the handhelds having a low level, the more people are playing games, man. Remove the console war shit and be like, dude, that just means another person can get into mobile games, or not mobile, but handheld. It means another person can get into next gen and play their game and be happy. And then the company looks and says, it's working, man. Let's, all these companies that are evaporated. It's like, I think some console warriors would just rather have the entire thing crash around them versus everybody doing well. You're just like, dude, come on, man. Don't you like games?
Because it's an exclusivity club, that sort of elitist mindset.
Yeah. I mean, admittedly, I'm right, and the Steelers are good, but I'm just joking.
One thing there that's useful to understand that thing with the memory is, think about what is the bottleneck of the system. What is the thing that's constraining your performance the most? And if it is memory, then you'll see a huge impact. Yeah. Right, if that's your bottleneck. But there will be other times, like you're saying, where memory is not really a bottleneck. Yes. There are like 3 other things that are constraining your performance. And so, addressing those would give you a bigger effect. It's similar to what we see sometimes, right? If someone has a really fast NVMe drive, well, when you compare it to like a slower SSD, sure, you will see some difference. But in practice, there are like 3 or 4 other things that are having a bigger impact before that comes into play.
Including the engine that doesn't take advantage of NVMe. How many times have we got those games? I have SSDs, but I have a bunch of NVMEs, and you'll move it between, and you'll see like 1 second faster loading.
It's still using like a fraction of your bandwidth.
I think that's what's so cool, too, about tech. I mean, this is just the honest truth, man. I don't like older consoles going away, but it has to happen. But the fact that, as Abzy just said a couple days ago, he's like, now that your baseline is NVMe, your baseline is this stuff,
it changes things.
Yeah, we can see companies look and go, we weren't able to do this, this quick loading, which is sort of what we wanted to do. I'm sure GTA, even though somebody did hack GTA and figured out a way to speed it up, but I'm sure the GTA devs wanted that switch to happen instantly in GTA 5.
Yeah. And look at the difference, right? Playing Spider-Man 2 and switching to Peter and Miles.
Just like, boop, dunzo. Yeah, it's great. That first battle in Spider-Man 2, when it first happens, I remember just being like, I cannot wait till people play this, because they're going to be like, what is going on? Like I said, Insomniac flexed. That's a flex. That's them just being like, hey, we've heard some people complain, so here's what we're going to do. Same problems as VR with handhelds. Really, really new stuff needs to be invented. Yeah, all these kind of things are good for gamers, guys. Even I'm sure we have. I hope not, but I'm sure we have some console warriors in here. The idea is that if you sort of improve that baseline, more people can jump in even at a lower price. And if the devs have a good way of doing what Alan Wake said they had a hard time with, which was just cutting resolution didn't work on the S. They had to do other things. But if we get to the point to where it's almost like that, sky's the limit, because they can start looking at the baseline NVMe and stuff and taking advantage of those things, which, by the way, Johnny pointed out, Alan Wake takes advantage of, obviously, with the quick going directly into the case file, world. Huge. I mean, you hit a button and it's like, it's just there, which is not what I'm accustomed to in a lot of games.
And I mean, that lower barrier of entry is the key to profitability, as you see with mobile gaming. Like, look at the money they're raking in. People are raking in with mobile games. That's the low barrier of entry there.
Yeah, it's and there's negatives to that, and there's negatives to all this stuff, but I just think overall having a tech that, like, for example, my dream is to wake up and see a game be announced and have it say Switch 2, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X. And that way I could have my Switch 2, and if I wanted to, I could play it even at 30 FPS, whatever, but it played, It wasn't like some of these games we played on the Switch where you're just like, dude, this is like single-digit FPS.
Frames.
Yeah.
Pokemon Scarlet or whatever.
FPM, frames per minute. And you're like, seriously, we are at a point now where we got to figure this out. Yeah, I'm excited for that day, man, because it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter if like Nintendo's suddenly putting a game on another console. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the third-party companies that can get a little bit of an umbrella financially, where you can be like, okay, we can do all these systems, so we're not losing out. And by the way, I can speak to losing out for sure just in videos. When I do an exclusive game for the Xbox or for Sony or for Switch, they always do far less views because, there might be some curiosity, but for the most part, an entire segment is removed.
Yeah.
So when you do a game like Alan Wake, for instance, it did way better than Spider-Man. And it's for everybody. Like, I can look and go, I know how this is going to do because we've cut out an entire segment. So, yeah, it's awesome stuff. Next up is through Discord. This is Wannabe Dev. He says, what's a developer pairing on a game you'd like to see? For me, it'd be Spider-Man, Insomniac, handling gameplay and a story, while the Yakuza devs would be handling side quests. Boy, is that not... That's a good mix.
That would be wild.
Man, Spider-Man side quests would suck balls. Yeah, that's a good...
That's a good one.
That is a good example, man. I'm trying to think...
Because, man, those guys, now that I'm playing, a Yakuza, like, fully invested for the first time, the way they populate, even like a small area, because some of the town areas are pretty small, but they feel kind of populated. There's a lot to dig into, different games.
Yeah, that's a good example. I mean, that hits on two recent titles too. I'm trying to think if there's another company I'd like to see. A mix of two developers. Is there any other Is there any other game out there that you guys know where, I'm not saying everybody thinks Spider-Man 2's side quests are bad, but I think most of the people I know find that their weakness. Is there any other game that we like a lot that the weakness is prominent enough that another dev sort of side handling it would be good?
They can fix it.
Yeah.
I would love to see like a From Software game, but with a studio that can actually write narratives.
Damn, yeah, man. That would be like, awesome. Remedy and FromSoft, man.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Get something.
Go. That would be
together,
sweet to see them. And do you think Elden Ring was improved because of R.R. Martin?
You know, I didn't.
I'm setting you up.
I would say yes. There was some more interesting kind of like backstory to things, but still the way the story is conveyed, that was not George. That's just FromSoft. That's the way they tell stories. And even after like 2 full playthroughs, I had no idea or interest in like what was actually happening.
Somebody else says Remedy and Guerrilla Games. And I would agree, because when you look at Horizon, I don't know about you guys, but I don't find Horizon's narrative, I find their world amazing, right? And I definitely like Lance Riddick as Silence, or whatever his name is, I think, in Horizon.
You, like is the plot you don't like, or more the writing?
It's the plot's fine, but the writing to get you point to point is not their strong point. And I think Remedy's strong point, I mean, this is just me, I don't know, maybe you guys don't agree, but I think Remedy's shown that they're pretty spot on.
And I agree with you. And also, they suffer from over exposition, the Horizon folks.
They do. And number 2 in particular.
Mm-hmm. Dude, the second game, you just like, okay, let's sit back down.
Yep.
And this is a 15-minute exposition.
You know how
to exhaust
Absy,
the
I don't know if you guys have heard Absy say he eats during, so when he eats, he watches shows. That's his thing. So like he'll be playing a game, it's time to eat, pauses the game, watch a show. When you are playing Horizon 2, and in some places Forbidden West, you
bring
might
out
as
some
well
hot wings.
just bring out some hot wings, and play the game, because that cutscene is so long. Silver, are there any? I don't think you're as hot on Alan Wake though.
Like, is there mine is going to be like from way back.
Go for it.
Potentially, like back in the day in the 2000s, the 2 kings of first-person shooters were Monolith, which I've already mentioned, and Raven Software, which has mostly these days been delegated by Activision to work on Call of Duty. Do various Call of Duty stuff. So to see them collaborate on like a modern first-person shooter, I think could be really, really interesting. That being said, I have no idea like that was 15, 20 years ago. I have no idea what those studios look like today. How many of the old guys are still there? But I think that's something I would really, really like to see.
That would be awesome. Josh, do you have any?
I kind of want to see like a Larian or a BioWare do the story or interface for story in like a Division style squad shooter. Like a massive interactive kind of level of, I mean, yes, it'll be live service because it's always online, but like I want to see that storytelling level, but with that level of game mechanic functionality and kind of in a world like, because Division 2 is fun. It is a lot of fun, but the story doesn't really grab me. It's like, go here, kill guy, but like, because you've been told by your agency to do so is not as compelling.
Mm-hmm.
And the ending with the barbecue on the lawn is really
spoiler for 6-year-old game. I'm just joking. No spoiler. It would be cool. I don't know if it'd slow down their game a little bit though, Joe. Like it would be definitely a different game.
Right, but it would like provide an option for a little bit, pacing, and like you can have that high energy, like, okay, we're in combat, and now like, okay, we're gonna bring it down and have that contrast of like a story of like whatever that story may be, but having something like a deeper level storytelling.
Dude, I'm looking at an answer here that's made my brain explode, because I don't know if they're joking, but to me, it's awesome. And let me scroll back up. It is Wild One Games says LA Noire with Disco Elysium. Dude,
oh man,
I would buy into that. Doubt.
Yeah.
Doubt.
But which part of your psyche are you doubting with?
Yeah, no shit.
Dude,
right?
Seriously.
It'd be like Tim Roth in the Lie to Me, the micro expressions where you have to stare and he goes like for a quarter of a second. You're like, liar! Because everything in LA Noire was based on just those 4 buttons. It wasn't the psychology of the person very much. It was like your clues. But the idea of breaking somebody psychologically, dude, that'd be...
Yes.
If anybody hasn't seen Lie to Me, you need to see it because it's an awesome show and it's sort of playing out to...
Yeah.
It is almost that. It's just not in the same time frame as LA Noire. I would kill for that. Yeah, that
Day one.
Good. Who did that again?
Yeah.
Wild Ones Gaming. Good answer, man.
Kudos to you. That's a good choice. Take that over mine.
That's ridiculous. But here's another one that's good, just real quick. Cedric says SpongeBob SquarePants with Spider-Man Combat. I'm covering a SpongeBob in a list video right now. That actually hits home for me because SpongeBob and those kind of games are usually ABB, for
very,
combos,
very basic,
right?
They're like platforming header.
Yeah, but the idea of like, all these special effects SpongeBob could do, fill a level with water, like suck up water by being a sponge, which by the way isn't used.
The movement would also be
I think the movement in the combat, it wouldn't be swinging, but the idea of like having a much more animated system and maybe even a bit closer, though platforming's hard when you get too close, right? We've seen that before. Where it's hard to bounce back. But I interrupted Johnny to read that. What were you going to say, John? You remember? Sorry, Johnny.
Oh, dude. Okay, so Lie to Me is a show I liked. I watched years ago, many years ago. But it occurred to me that would make a good game. That type of idea. It is kind of LA Noire, but it would be better, right, with current face technology. Like you look at Alan Wake, some of the faces you see there,
so good, man.
The pores of people and stuff.
Man,
it's like your pores are telling me that this is a lie.
Your pores are lying. You get a beard bristle.
You looked up to the left.
You are angry.
You're sweating. You're perspirating. That means.
Yeah. And then, oh my God, what if they took it right from the show where you're eating the entire time? Because remember, he did that on purpose. He would eat in front of somebody and get all messy to make them aggressive. Like you're just like, so you got like a big chip in your beard, and you're all so anyway, and you can just see the
press
guy
A to eat chip.
Yeah, press A to eat chip. And then it's a rhythm game, and if you fuck it up, the chips go all over your face. These are awesome ideas.
Do this combo to eat chip.
This is
go ahead. I have a different one actually. What about Maxis and Obsidian?
Yeah, I would love to see Maxis from when I remember them.
For something like Sims Medieval type sort of role-playing game with a more centered story and like progression, really character based.
Yeah.
For like for Sims type stuff almost. That could be really interesting.
I agree, because me, I'm a huge fan of Sims, so I would be fucking I would dive into that. That would be awesome to see. Also, Maxis is done, right? They got deleted by EA, did they not? Or is Maxis still around?
Are they
still
doing
doing games? I can't remember.
I'm not sure if they're still a subdivision of EA.
We always say, we don't know what they are now, but I think with Maxis and with Sims, we know the gameplay style, so it wouldn't really matter. You know what I mean? There's something about it where it's like, I think they could still do that. That'd be cool. Let's see. Next up, Austin says, what do you guys have as your current Xbox dashboard background or your desktop Windows background? Mine is a Viking. Go ahead.
I have my desktop background is a wolf. My background on my Xbox dashboard is a screenshot from Assassin's Creed Origins of Bayek riding a camel through the desert.
Dude, some of the most beautiful locations, right?
Yeah.
Like just ridiculously good looking. What about we'll go with Cadiz first. What about you?
My computer desktop background is from Warframe. It's the view from the large ship Railjack that you get looking down on the Earth. And then for my Xbox dashboard, it's it's also from Warframe. It's the character that I main the most, Nezha in deluxe skin, for those who know and play. Picture of that with katana set with the moon in the background. Basically, you can go in and do a photo mode. And so I spent like 45 minutes getting it just right, and then I set that as the background.
Johnny?
For me, it's one of those wallpaper engine moving ones.
Yeah.
So it's a large empty hall. There's a man with a flat cap or like a flat hat, those top hats, I think they're called, with a stick, a cat next to him, and they are looking out onto a huge glass panel that's looking out into the galaxy, and it's like the galaxy
steampunk futuristic or Victorian futuristic, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that type of stuff. Mm-hmm.
I like desktop wallpaper. I also like just using VLC because desktop wallpaper is sort of heavy computationally.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah, so I found out with VLC you can get any movie and just right-click it and say make it as your desktop, and it's like
really?
one meg. Yeah, it's actually pretty impressive. You have to, of course, then cut what you want, but I've done a little montage and I do that. Yeah, I think moving desktops, especially for me because I'm sitting in the same place a lot. I was just telling Josh this on our last when we went out and worked out. It was like I get a little bit numb to what I see. And so a visual desktop or changing my background always helps. There's something about it.
And some of them are crazy with wallpaper engine. Some of them react to your cursor. So, you move and maybe the eyes of the girl move or, like the position.
Track.
Yeah, they track.
That's cool.
So I want to point out that Big Mac did say that Maxis is still going. He says they're hiring for an environmental artist not too long ago. So thanks for updating us on that.
Good to hear.
I know somebody, maybe. I haven't seen it even once yet. Sometimes people get mad because we don't look stuff up. The idea of this podcast is we're trying to be accurate, but it is sort of a general flow. So there will be times where I'll just say, can somebody look that up into chat? Because we're just sort of, I already have 9 windows open. So at some point, I think it's getting a little stupid. And so I definitely appreciate Big Mac looking that up. You rock, man. And then move into Twitter. And then we'll start talking about one more of the big topics. So I asked people on Twitter to ask some questions. And this one's actually, not that they're not all really good, but this one's sort of, let's not spoil our new games. I'll just say that. Maverick says, have you ever discovered a hidden part or mechanic of a game that you really enjoyed simply because you were going for a particular achievement or trophy that you otherwise would not have discovered? Ignoring just the trophy, because some of us don't play that, just the mechanic also. Is there something in a game where there was a special mechanic or a special, like something that's hidden and you find out later or you're doing it and you're like, whoa, this isn't anywhere in, it's not explained to me. It's sort of, and we're not talking about iframes, by the way. We're talking about like that's a real thing, but you get my drift. Like, has there been any secrets? Go ahead, Silver. I think you've got one.
There are two really that come to mind as
Go for it.
As two of the biggest I remember. The first was Chrono Trigger. There's a character in that game called Magus, who's basically set up to be a big villain. And it turns out you can actually recruit him later on, but you have to be at a very specific place at a very specific time.
Oh, wow.
And on my first playthrough, I didn't know that. And then I learned it subsequently that you could actually do that. You could go and recruit him and then fight the big bad guy together with him.
With him on your team?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, damn.
And it's really cool sort of story arc. And one of many in that game. And there was something similar in Deus Ex, the original Deus Ex, where J.C. Denton's brother, Paul Denton, you get raided in the apartment, and there's a shootout, and you have to escape through the window, and Paul dies. But you can actually stay and kill the guys raiding the apartment and save your brother, and he can survive through to the ending. And I didn't know that the first time I played through the game either, and discovered that subsequently through talking to other players at the time. And both of those sort of blew my mind at the time.
So I have two, and one of them's Deus Ex as well. And it's not really a secret anymore, but I was blown away that during the conversation that the agent has with your female partner, when she leaves, if you stay there, you actually hear a full-on conversation about the background of the story and about this character and all. And I remember and I stayed on accident. I'm pretty sure I just walked away because nothing was happening. I had to go to the restroom or what have you. And I come back and there's talking that mattered. You know, it's not the blurb, it's not the bark from an NPC. And I was like legitimately stunned at that. And then the other is Far Cry 3 or 4, the first time they did it, where you can beat it by just right at the starting. And I know that
was 4, I think.
Was that 4? I just remember like finding that out and being like, you know, obviously you want to play the game, but that was an awesome, it was just a nod. It was like a tip of the hat to the gamers who did something slightly different at the starting and didn't follow the trope of the bad guy told you to do this or the good guy told you to do this and you followed them. Johnny?
You know, I don't have a great one. I remember in Nier Automata, it was kind of cool because there's like a early boss fight you go into, and if you die there, you get the credits for the game, and that's one of the endings, is if you die there. I thought that was a cool, idea. And I mean, of course, that's an achievement too, because that's a specific ending you can get in the game by doing that. You did have to redo the starting part, which was annoying. But overall, I like that idea of, you know, giving like a bunch of different endings people can get.
Yeah, with what you would consider to be a fail state normally.
Yeah, fail state. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Josh, do you have any?
Kind of along the same lines with Johnny. Another one is that if you go through the equipable skills and chips and stuff, if you pull the OS chip,
which game?
From your character,
can kill yourself.
You can kill
Bayonetta. Yeah, you can kill yourself.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Yep. Bayonetta's got a bunch, don't they? Because there's another thing I don't want to. Well, the adjustments of your. I'm talking about. Oh, sorry, not Bayonetta. I meant Nier Automata.
Nier Automata.
Oh, Nier Automata.
I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those
I'm
are
trying
all.
to think of other ones.
For me, also the first time I could pick up a basketball in Deus Ex 2. Invisible World, which is play, or I mean, we call it play, but it's really just like a really poorly physics basketball, because I think it actually only bounces twice too. It's like boom, boom. It's a medicine ball, you know, more than anything. But I remember just being like, oh my god, I can pick up the basket. When you can interact with the world, man, and you can move things around, even if you're not doing anything useful, there's that feeling of like, I moved this around. And I adjusted.
I think the discovering and finding Reptile in the but the second Mortal Kombat game by doing the certain in the arcade, like doing the certain right combinations and doing the uppercut, you could get him to come out.
Yeah, that shit's awesome, man. Those kind of things there's something about it when you find it also on your own that is just sort of magical. Nick with a $2 super chat. Thank you very much for the super chats again. What current bad trend is being normalized? A bad trend in gaming is what he's talking about.
Live service games.
I mean, that's been normalized for a long time now.
I think he was joking, but I would say the discussion of length alone. The discussion of length of a game is absolutely acceptable to have and should be had. Because you're also talking about repetitiveness. If it's a shooter, you know, if depending on the game, Spider-Man was discussed. I think when it's alone, that shouldn't be normalized.
The bigger is better.
Yeah, bigger is better, or it's short, so it's for sure not worth it. And I do agree that, by the way, if a game is super short, I will try to find out why the price is at whatever it is. But I do think that separately, it's an uncomfortable conversation because it starts to become just this number that's arbitrary. Third-person game needs to be this, you know, and we don't all want a bunch. I love Odyssey. It's top 10 games for sure for me of all time. But I'm going to tell you right now, guys, if every game was Odyssey, I'd be out of game
Nobody
reviewing.
has that kind of time.
Nobody's got that kind of time. I'd be like, I'm done. I'm going to stream games, because a streamer, you'd make money. But as a reviewer, you'd be like, dude, I don't want to review. No way, man. So I don't want that in all the games. I like the occasional shorter, tight, you know, here's your title.
True. I think the cursor thing, the fake cursor in menus. Or
hold the button down to choose.
I know I bring it up every time.
I'm with you.
Yeah, right. The moment you see a circle going around a cursor, I want to just and punch to it's not needed, and Ubisoft loves it, man. It probably has to do, by the way, with something loading. It probably has to do with RAM and all that. But I'm pretty sure it did it with the old ones, which at that point wasn't the same kind of situation. And you're just
because all their menus in the recent, you know, like Odyssey and all these games, they kind of look the same. And they have this
Division. Yeah. I love Division. I'm playing Division right now. Played it last night, and I'm at the moment. I'm just like, get that shit.
The moment you gotta go in the inventory, and they've made it a lot better than it was. But
yeah, they have. But still, they made it a lot better because even they agreed it was bad. See, that's the thing terrible. Is like if you see the developer going, all right, you got us. Then I think it means something. Ubisoft seems somewhat impervious to the complaints about it, which is why I'm hedging my bets a little bit that it might have to do with them uncorking a bunch of memory to get something working.
Yeah. Or maybe they just consider it's a solved problem. Like, hey, we know how to make menus. We're just going to continue.
All right. It's just not a good solve. Like,
it's not a good solve.
We can all write one sentence about Spider-Man. It doesn't mean they'll all be good. You know, like their version of it is like Spider-Man walked across the water.
It saves them from having to do something different from console to PC. So
true that, right? Yeah, that you're right on that. But have you ever got that game, guys, where you played it on PC and it's got a mouse and everything's fine? You get into the console game and it's flicky and the cursor sticks the way it should, and you're like, I might just play the PC. I sort of dig that. Yeah. You know, and you're like, oh yeah, baby. Crusader Kings is one, by the way. Crusader Kings on the console, you're just like, you know, there's some soft, but there's also, and Stellaris is like that. Stellaris with the gamepad. Right. I talk to Josh all the time about Star Trek Online on the gamepad is infinitely more enjoyable than it is on the mouse and keyboard. Even though I have 1,000 more moves, it's like I'm flying the ship and I'm getting
it done. Yeah.
I'm getting it done. Yeah. Worksmanship.
I don't need 3 trays of abilities when it can just be tied to. I would always be casting this when it's off cooldown.
Yeah.
I would always be doing this. I can steer the ship with this controller pad.
Just let me do it.
That's how I felt with Baldur's Gate 3 as well.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about that. You had some issues with the UI for Baldur's Gate. Maverick asked another question I do want to hit. He says, asking about it because I noticed a lot of discussion around how completionism is unfavorably or considered unfavorable in a way to play. He's talking about us and me in particular, because I bitch about it. He says, I don't take offense, but my first thought is always, I've had some excellent quest lines I've experienced as a result of trying to get a trophy. Fair.
I mean, for me, it's not so much the trophy run. It's more and I'm super guilty of this in role-playing games like Baldur's Gate 3 and all the Baldur's Gates for that matter. It's just that I want to do everything. So it's the funny conceit of like your main quest has a timeline that's implied in the story. That's awesome. I need to go clear my entire journal of side quest stuff over here for the next 3 months, while technically this time is ticking down and doesn't actually, like, there's a couple times in Baldur's Gate 3 where that actually does happen, which was surprising. But usually I will like, okay, this is the main quest. I'm going to put that on pause and I have to do everything else that leads up to that because I just want to see everything. And that's, even though I could just go play through completely, come back, play through with a different character and catch some of the things I didn't do last time.
Just so you know, I think just because of the way I talk on this podcast, I think their version of completionism might be wrapped just around trophies, where yours is wrapped about just wanting to see the game.
Yes.
My bother is that I have seen even my friends, people that like I know probably shouldn't do this, go through trophies. I hit the guy 5 times, I got a trophy, blah, blah, blah. And they miss some of the actual parts of the games because they're following the trophy.
I see what you're saying.
What you're talking about is completionism. So it's part of the conversation. I'm just thinking that because I do bitch about it constantly, and I know people who like trophies I've had people be like, I'm not watching because you bitch on trophies, and I'm like, good, because the next podcast I'm probably going to bitch about it. Like it's unfortunate, but it's just one of those things.
Yeah, sure.
And I think too, like if you're honest about it, how many times did a trophy lead you to an interesting thing or quest line versus all the times that it was like, you know, pick up this chicken, collect these 50 feathers, or
dude, have you
carry this gnome throughout the entire series of levels when you can't shoot.
Yeah.
Because you have to carry this gnome.
See, it's funny too, because here's my big belief. I would rather have those not be trophies, but be called like special achievements.
And challenges or something.
Challenges, right? And we see that in some games already. And I talk about this a lot, but Shadow Gambit had its own in the game, which bothered me even more because then you have the others out of the game. And you're like, yeah. So I think something like carry a gnome across the level without shooting, I actually think that's pretty cool if they were set up in a way that wasn't about this arbitrary brain dead trophy thing that isn't even a part of the game. Hit a guy 10 times with an uppercut is like, well, that's going to happen in the game anyway. Not like, why am I getting an achievement? Or how many times you walked in a room, you found this safe room, and you're like,
or
I
the
had
achievements
to find the safe room.
Completed chapter 1. Like, bro.
Yeah, you're like, probably going to do that to get to chapter 2.
See, it's like those are actually some of my favorites. Those are actually some of my.
Oh my God! What do you mean?
Not for completing, but for tracking. So going into like the achievements like list and seeing, oh, this percentage of players got to this point in the game. This percentage of players got into this point section of the game, and this percentage of players reached the final stages of the game or even completed it. I find that aspect interesting.
Now, let me dig into that because, like, why is it interesting to you? Is it because you want to contrast it with your own, level of exploration of the game? Because for me, I don't give a crap about like what other people are doing with the game, and what they want to complete or explore.
It's because I find it interesting to see how few people actually finish games.
Yeah.
Where do they stop? Where might they actually encounter something that's a hurdle to their progression and might make them quit the game potentially?
Yeah, where's the drop-off point for most people? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and I think also when you look at these kind of things, especially when you look at achievements of that kind, I think that stuff is very exciting as a discussion piece for like a development video or discussion about game development. And what I don't like is I'm starting to see it on Twitter where somebody be like, this game, only 50% of, people completed this game and therefore it's bad or whatever. And you're like, I don't think that's really what that means. Like, it could mean that. It for sure could, but it doesn't always mean that. They're just one more.
There's no necessarily list. Causation doesn't necessarily equate to correlation.
Yeah, right. The only platinums I've ever got was only because I felt like doing it. And I think that, again, I like the idea of putting together some kind of, it would be a weird name, but I like the idea of like special achievement in a game or special or challenges. Those kind of things I think work out. It's just that we see it a lot of times where developers seem to throw the achievements in and they're pretty basic. They're pretty, and then you get people who play it and say, I platinumed this game in this amount of time. And it's like, but did you experience the game?
Did you enjoy your time getting to that?
Yeah, it's just a little bit uncomfortable when you look at it. When I hear completionist, I imagine a platinum or 100%. Yeah, I do want to point out that I think that overall, the way people are talking about it, probably responding to me saying that, but at the same time, there is a very good chance that some people are just talking about what Josh was saying, which is, hey, I want to see these other quests. And I definitely do that. If I get a good quest, and have you ever got that warning? You will not be able to continue in this location.
I hate that so much because I immediately go, because it says to me, you need to drop everything about this and basically pull the e-brake, jump out of the car right now, and you need to stop, go and like, okay, I need to do all this other stuff. And it's not that it's immersion breaking, but it is story flow breaking in that, like, I now have to walk everything back and double check like my little list. Like, did I go everywhere? Did I talk to everybody?
Yeah, I think...
Well, because it used to be like you had to do that because a lot of games never had like stuff like New Game Plus. Now that New Game Plus is becoming a little bit more consistent in a lot of games, like, okay, I can, if I know there's a New Game Plus, it'd be like, okay, great. Or not a New Game Plus, but you can continue to play after that sequence that's telling you the warning, like, hey, make sure you finish this because it's going to trigger this where you can't come back for a while. That's fine. Right. But if it says like, you can't come back to this ever, that means I've closed all those avenues off and I'm like, oh no, that's a problem. And so it, like, if you can come back, then I'm fine. But if not, I'm immediately
fear of missing out.
Oh, and that's the thing, is like, I'm not usually like game release FOMO, but I am horribly FOMO for story beats in a game.
Right.
Do you think that when you look at those kind of titles, though, does that, would you rather have the warning or no warning? Would you rather have no warning and then it just
no. I 100% warning. I would want a warning, but also I am the psycho who is who's constantly save scumming for that exact same reason. And I am the problem. I am 100% the problem, and I know that is a problem for me, and that is a weakness for me. Whereas like you and I have talked about it before, like just play through and make the choice. I'm like, no, but like I get it, but what happens if I had made this other choice? And it's basically just it's an inconsistency time loop that I'm creating for no reason other than my own psychosis.
Yeah,
so
psychosis.
I have a problem.
So you are the problem.
Neurosis.
No, exactly. I will fully admit I am the problem.
And I'm certainly like the opposite, but I whoops, sorry.
Well, it's the conversation we had about Jade Empire, about how every game up to that point I'd always played like it's the quintessential good guy, and you're like, why haven't you played a bad guy and made those other choices? Like they're there. I'm like, I never really thought about it. And so I did. I'm like, this is a completely different game now.
A better game.
And really dark at times. Like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, that is one thing. I think a lot of people don't want to play the bad guy because they, there's thought process of like you're the hero. But a lot of the hero stuff bothers me because when you do shit and you look back on it, you're like, man, I'm the bad guy, even as the hero.
Yeah, sure.
Like I do some shit where like, you destroy an entire town or whatever.
Questionable.
And it's like,
yeah.
And you're like, I'm not 100% sure I'm the good guy. And so I don't know what happened, but one day, I think it was probably KOTOR where I played it so many times. I was like, let's change it up. That's also, Johnny and I've talked about this. I will never, ever turn on Baldur's Gate 3 again because I got my classic story. I was very happy with it. Like I'm like, dude,
just
this
one
is
and
exact. And and it's not that I don't want to see the others. It's that I don't know what happened, but I was sated. I got done.
Interesting,
like,
because
boom.
Like how many times you've gone back through KOTOR or Jade Empire or Mass Effect and
Star Wars maybe just Star Wars and Revan's
the setting.
Revan's pretty cool. Yeah, it's probably just that character, but yeah. Right. And Mass Effect.
Yeah, I mean. You're right. In those games, there is that conflict of, I'm this pacifist Jedi, but I've killed like 150 bounty hunters, Sith, whatever. Yeah.
Do you know what also bothers
me? It's the
Silver?
Nathan Drake corollary
Silver, you
of
just
like
hit
a mass
the
murderer.
other thing too.
Well, kind of, but Nathan Drake never really sort of pretends to be a pacifist monk.
But that's like the joke is like, he's the good guy who's killed hundreds.
Or when you play a Jedi and you're mini-maxing the Force. And you're like, I can kill some of these guys, but not all of them because I'll go to a different version of the Force. Like I'll let's say lose light side alignment. So I start going, what can I do over here? Just a little bit. And
meanwhile, Kyle Katarn is like throwing Force Lightning, Force Drift, Force Healing.
So at some point, I'm just like, screw it, man. I'm because the gaming of the over. I like the overarching ideas of alignment, all that stuff. I have no issues with them, but I do find out that when you start knowing it's 4 points for killing this guy, or it's 3 points for this decision, I start finding myself like, okay, seriously, this guy can just slaughter somebody and it's only 3 points. Like, life must not matter in this world if I'm just able to take Obi-Wan and slaughter all the sand people and it's still like minus 10 points. You can get it back if you help this guy collect water. And you're like, narratively, does any of that shit make sense?
None of that balances. Yeah.
None of it balances. But again, it's a game. You have to, you do have to.
Yes, there's mechanics. Yeah.
Eternal says, true, the cognitive dissonance between mass murder and cutscenes where you're grandstanding against bad guys. That is true, too. Have you guys ever had a game where you didn't do and the cutscene shows you doing stuff and you're like, dude, every choice I've made to this point, I would never do what the cutscene shows. So you'll play the game a certain way and a cutscene will play out and you're like saving people. And it's like, dude, I just killed everybody on the way here. Like
the first Dragon Age where like every cutscene, you're just covered head to toe in blood because you just like,
and instead
just
you
waded through bodies and you're like, well, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Or you beat a boss and then the cutscene shows the boss beating you like in a way like, so you kill a boss, right? But then the cutscene shows like the boss turning on you and then getting the upper hand outside of your control. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, dude. It also bothers me when in any boss battle, and this is just now we're just talking about bothers, but one of the things in boss battle is like you're schooling the boss and then they have that ultimate move to knock you down to show the cutscene or whatever. And you're like, seriously, man, I schooled this guy. Like
you have to lose battle.
Yeah, he's all, I'm super powerful and you're good, so I'll join you. And I'm like, dude, I dribbled you. Like, I don't want you on my team. You're like,
own you.
Yeah, you're the grade school basketball player, obviously. And I'm Jordan. What are you doing? I don't want you on my team. You suck. Another question from Johan is, any thoughts on the Super game being developed by Sega? And what you and the guests would want to see Sega spend $800 million on. So I don't know if you saw this, but there was like their financials and stuff indicate a super game Sega is making. And no one knows what that super game is. And it's Sega.
That's the next Alpha Protocol.
Oh my God.
Don't do that to me. I can't handle it.
Be one of the greatest moments in gaming is like a game that was
Alpha
liked
Protocol
by many
2.
but had issues, and they were like, we've decided it's worth it to try $800 million on Alpha Protocol. That would be awesome. I don't know what it's going to be from them.
Or they're finally trying to get success out of the Alien license, though I don't think they have it anymore.
Do they have? Oh, okay. I would, my honest truth, I talked about it on Wednesday. I just don't think, I think almost all Sonic games, I don't know about you, but I feel all Sonic games are rough and that they are, they don't feel as smooth as I think their speed is trying to indicate. I would love to see them clean up Sonic to the point of being a true platforming super giant, where it feels like a Mario Wonder. Where it feels like when you play it, you're just like, wow. Sorry, go ahead.
It's really funny. Did you play Pizza Tower this year?
No, I haven't even heard of that. I don't know what that is.
It's a 2D platformer, but it's kind of
Pizza
it's
Tower?
Basically a better Sonic than Sega has made a Sonic in a long time.
And it's called
it's called Pizza Tower.
What a terrible name, by the way.
I'm getting super hungry, man. We talked about chicken wings earlier. Now it's pizza.
No, I got it. Finally, the successful and full RPG-ified return of Altered Beast. The time is now.
Yeah, no shit. See, so Sega's that is true though, that Sega's got some IPs that if Altered Beast was handled like Spider-Man, it would be mind-blowing. Imagine
I'm an Altered Beast apologist.
So am I. Rise from your grave, angry Elmer Fudd. But if they were like, Altered Beast is, and it's like a Spider-Man equivalent for Altered Beast, dude, I honestly believe that could succeed. Like that's an IP that I think, if it was handled in that level. But the thing is money doesn't mean much, right? Because we see some, we see games that we know cost $300-400 million or whatever.
Money doesn't necessarily mean success.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
I was gonna say I'm looking through their IP stuff. I'm like, that would be awesome to put a bunch of money behind and like really expand out. Like,
go ahead and read them if you got it.
Golden Axe, a full scale one of that. Go back and kind of do a reimagining of Condemned in like a more Alan Wake style, kind of setup. Maybe
that would be very cool.
What else?
They have
Panzer Dragon.
Still.
We haven't seen anything from Panzer Dragoon in forever.
Is Panzer Dragon, and that is still owned by Sega?
That is Sega, yeah.
Dude, that's, I don't know anything. I haven't followed since they originally announced it. Maybe somebody knows the game, but that legitimately could be their super game. It seems to me that Panzer Dragon as a full RPG, if they said Panzer Dragon Saga 2 or what, was Saga 2 made? Just one?
I think just one. Was the RPG, yeah.
Dude, that'd be mind-blowing.
I didn't know they still owned Phantasy Star. That's another one.
Yeah, the Phantasy Star Online does really good for itself, from what I understand, too. Even though I think it looks ancient. Yeah. But it's that typical JRPG grinder, but from what I understand, people like it.
And I know it's not going to be Virtual Fighter, but that would be like a complete reimagining of Virtual Fighter.
I would kill for that, man. I'm such a...
You would kill everyone for that.
Dylan MB says, would you guys discuss the implosion of The Escapist? Did you ever use that site, ACG? I did years ago, but we talked about it on Wednesday. But yeah, they, the editor, and then we now know a couple of video people were fired, and then everybody just quit and protested, and they've started a Patreon. It's not unusual, unfortunately, right now, for the people who are getting paid by websites to look at SEO and say, maybe I should, grow a beard, put a beanie on, and be, make some money as like a, stupid game reviewer. makes more sense, right? Like, I think for a lot of those people, if they're working their asses off, they're good writers, they have contacts. I think a lot of the companies need to start looking and making sure this doesn't happen more. And what that means is paying your people, not being dicks, figuring out, like...
Not trying to AI everything.
Not trying to AI everything. Yeah. I mean, it's not the first. I mean, we've seen it. Easy Allies, I think, split from somebody. I can't remember, but they split from somebody. Giant Bomb, they had their stuff where everybody sort of separated and moved. It's pretty normal right now for people to see that the bread can be buttered on both sides. Yeah. And it truly... I like the idea of working for a website because I've talked to some people where it sounds like that could be, if you're good at writing, that could be an enjoyable thing, but then they're under the same pressure we are. But I should also say anybody who's leaving to go to YouTube has a much harder job than I did. The chaff is really high right now.
Yeah.
Really high. And you're seeing people stymied in subscriber. We got lucky because I have a friend who helped me with putting videos slightly together better and stuff like that to do subscribers. But I've seen people doing, 1 million views, and it's really rough to see subscriber growth because there's a shit ton of chaff on YouTube. So it's like maybe you do an OnlyFans. I know that sounds weird, but I do feel that some people probably want to talk about games in a way that, like we do, where I cuss a lot. If I went to OnlyFans, there would be no worry about uploading a video where, well, for example, I had to censor Abzy twice because I cut it on purpose, but I had to censor Abzy twice in the last time on ACG prior to us going live because in the first 30 seconds, you're not supposed to have cuss words. And I was like, got to worry about that. But with OnlyFans, you just show up and, show people your feet.
So is Patreon censored? Can you
Patreon,
say anything there?
Yeah, I was at quadruple what I was subscribers and then lost almost 3/4 of my subscribers overnight because they censored 2 people. And people left. Wow. And they were nice. Yeah. Every single person that left was great. Like, I'll never, ever have a bad thing to say about them. Because they said, listen, I like you, but man, I cannot support this a website that's just going to censor people when you're paying to get into a private section anyway. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And
that hit a lot of creators on Patreon. Yeah, that was pretty big.
And by the way, the bigger one, Johnny, for many of us was us. I was bigger than the people that got banned, and it destroyed.
It was
Patreon
a ripple
for me. Yeah, dude, it was ridiculous. Twice now that's happened. That happened two different times. That happened, and I lost almost well over a half in the first 2. But then Patreon, without telling anybody, turned the charges onto the patron and not onto the payee.
Yes, I remember.
So I used to pay the taxes and the fee, and without warning, man, they're just like, boom.
Nobody was notified.
And I had people who were just given $1. I don't even want to say just. That's $1.
So it's
that
like
requires them to sign up.
It
wasn't duplicating. It turned the fee from me to them. So their $1, they had to pay like $1.50.
Right. That's what I mean. So if they're already giving $1, but now they have to pay like something like $1 for fees.
Where I pay that currently. And by the way, patrons said we're switching, but nobody, just like bad news, right? Nobody looks at the correction. Nobody wakes up and says,
sorry, the damage has been done.
We've updated our website. And you're like, dude, nobody's looking at the bottom of your page to see the update to your fucking website. Like, they're looking at the main article. So, yeah, it sucked, but that's life, right? Like, you have to take it into account. I think OnlyFans is pretty much unpolitical or whatever. I think right now, just because there's porn.
But they have been, from what I gathered, they have been sort of in conflict over whether they whether they should censor, how much they should censor as well.
There's probably questionable stuff, that happens a lot. Adito says, I've seen people do 2 videos, one for YouTube, the other for a different platform. I've seen people cut up stuff for 5 platforms. Carnage and I talked. I think we started talking after, but he has where he takes his Twitch, and it takes a long time because the what do you call it? Don't overlap the audiences. They just don't, man. Like our Twitch, some of our Twitch fans are still on Twitch, and I've had to like do 3 warnings and be like, dude, we're not on Twitch anymore. You guys, I
had still people refuse.
Yeah,
sometimes to switch.
I don't know about you guys, dude. Sometimes I'll forget I'm paying like a streaming service or whatever. Oh, let my like I'll forget I'm paying for a streaming service, and then I'll go back and look, and I'm like, I paid fucking $15 for 5 months for this shit.
That happened to me. Absolutely, man.
There's so many.
Dude, I was such an idiot one time because I realized I was paying for phone insurance for a year, but guess what? It was my prior phone.
Oh, I had that. Was it? Yeah, I did that too for a bit.
It wasn't even the phone I owned.
Yeah. I was paying for 2 phone insurances.
I was paying for a year. Every month. Oh.
I've done that. I've done not quite that long, but for a good 2-3 months. I'm like, wait, why is this? Oh no, I'm still paying this.
I guess I assumed it was for my current phone.
Right.
But even then, why am I paying? Anyway, none of it made sense.
I mean, that's the thing is, it's sort of the joke about like the frog in the boiling water. You've got these things, you jump into a subscription because you want to play something.
It's very easy to add one more subscription and then hard to track them.
That's how you get streaming.
This is how you get people buying the OLED Switch. And the OLED Steamdeck too is where it's a new thing on the side, and people. I had somebody last night who was like, "Oh my God, it's 1 ounce less. It weighs 1 ounce less." And I'm like, "Correct, 1 ounce. What are you doing?" And they were talking themselves into buying it, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm watching this in real time." Like a person when you see a TV show on a streaming service you don't have, and you're like, "Yeah, but I really want to. I'll sleep on it." And then the next day, that's the first thing you check. And I really want to see the show. I'll get it, and then forget.
Yeah.
And suddenly,
and then they do the thing where it's free the first month or whatever, but they make it hard as balls for you to actually cancel the service. Mm-hmm. You have to go into like 5 different storefronts to actually access the cancellation.
Or Johnny, you get the thing that you don't see it, or maybe they don't warn you, and you try to cancel, and they're like, you need to call, or you need to like email and explain yourself.
Dude.
And you're all,
it kills my soul whenever you need to call.
Yes.
Dude, I just go into the credit card and I'm like, this
there's
is not
no reason
at this point on. There's no reason.
Outside of obfuscation. Obfuscation. There's no reason for me to have to call in 2023.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I don't want to say my secret, but it's like I've told Josh how I set up my phones and stuff like that. It's like, I'm not calling anybody, man. No way. Because I'm not on any lists, man. I'm not going to add mine. Because the moment you show up, that's getting added.
Oh, yeah.
They're selling that phone number to everybody. 85 other websites, that have it. Necro says, I paid 6 months of extra Star Wars Galaxy sub on my mom's credit card growing up. Because I forgot to cancel it. She was not pleased.
I can imagine. That's not a good look.
I do believe that parents are in charge. I know you hear people say, companies should. Yeah, it's like, we don't know the age of this person. We don't know how it'll happen. But I would say that if I did that, I don't know. I'm afraid of my parents even now if I did that. I don't know if it's.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they'd never find my body if I'd ever pulled anything like that.
I don't know. I don't even know what they. And I wasn't beaten or anything. I was spanked, but I wasn't.
Same.
So it's like, I'm not saying that. I'm just like, the idea of stealing my mom's credit card and putting money on it.
So far out of the possibility realm.
It's out of pocket, right? It's like, dude, no way. I don't even know what would.
In no world would I ever entertain that idea.
And maybe it's just the, what do you get it when you're, I am disappointed. Maybe it's just disappointment that I'm worried about, but it's also like.
Yeah. The look.
I just don't know what my parents would have done. Yeah, it's probably just, or I remember one time I did something really bad. And my dad just said, just go to your room. And I was like, uh-oh. That response was not the overreaction I expected. It was I just...
You almost wanted the...
I did. I did. It's like when...
Just be mad at me, but
I'm breaking
not
up
this.
with you, and they're like, actually, I want to break up too. And you're like, well, I don't want to break up. Let's talk about it. You're just like, dude, you got into that on your own, Yeah, it's awesome stuff. My wife wants HBO Max or whatever it is now called just to watch Last of Us. Last of Us is worth watching, but aren't there websites that track these?
I think there's
now?
service. Yeah, there's services now that you can like you can sign up through that, and it's going to be like you put in only a certain amount of money, so it auto pulls it because it'll default after a certain point in time, but it's not your actual card.
Steven Savage says, I think most likely Sega Super Game is going to be a Final Fantasy styled online competitor using the Persona IP. That would be insane. I forgot Sega owns Persona. Yeah.
I'd play that.
Yeah. They definitely own some serious IPs. It could turn out to be that. I mean,
Persona
we just have to
Online.
See. I mean, I don't know, man. There's a lot of grind. Persona's technically, it feels like it's online when you're doing Persona 5 Royale.
Right? I didn't. Okay, I hadn't played since 4.
MMO, but single player. Like,
dude, Persona 5. I remember talking to Reg
when you're
and
down in the
in the dungeons,
in the subway. I forget Mementos.
Dude, and I remember talking to Reg, and he's like, I have like 400 hours in the first one. Then Persona Royale came out with like an extra cat to tell you no or something. I don't even remember, but it was like, here's Persona Royale, and he's like, yeah, I'll probably
do it again.
Probably put another 400 hours.
An extra waifu.
Yeah, is that what it was? But I was just like, Reg, man, let me talk you back from the edge. Come on, buddy. Come on. You can't like, don't do that to yourself. Like, you could play Pizza Tower or whatever the one silver was that mentioned. What else do we got for subjectos? Massive PlayStation delays, Steamdeck, Remnant. Red Dead Redemption 2. Did you guys see the sales on this, man? It was
not surprising.
It isn't surprising. It honestly feels to me like they did count Undead Nightmare, they stated, but then I think Big Mac said, did they count Revolver? Do you know if they did in their sales? Because I think they say the series and they only include. Okay. But
I can't think Revolver had that many.
You don't think so? You don't think Revolver had a million or two? Okay. Franchise has sold. This is Red Dead Redemption.
Maybe
this
a million.
Red Dead.
I could see
over the years
for Revolver. Yeah.
Franchise has sold 81 million units worldwide. Red Dead Redemption 2 sold 57 million units. Red Dead Redemption 2 best-selling title in the U.S. in the past 5 years based on dollar sales. Red Dead Online, well, we can ignore that. They released a standalone edition of Red Dead. Okay, we can ignore that.
Yes.
Released Red Dead Redemption and Undead Nightmare for Switch and PS4 in August 2023 as well, which I didn't remember.
Dude, that's such a ridiculous number. Did you say 57 million?
57 million.
Yep.
To put it into perspective,
they sold something like 20 million, I think, back in 2018, right? When it launched, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, some of the hits now are selling like 5 million, and they're considered hits like Spider-Man.
Vampire needed to only sell 500,000 to get a sequel, and it sold like 3 million. So it only needed to sell 500,000. Now, admittedly, Red Dead 2 is unlike most other games. I mean, I think
Yeah. And we do see now many more like smaller games hitting the million mark. Like I think Remnant hit it. Like there were some games that. So I guess it's now easier to hit that, but that's a ridiculous figure, man.
Yeah,
57.
Here's what's also cool though. Those guys, regardless of some of my issues with online, my issue with GTA Trilogy, which was just mind-bendingly terrible. The idea that those guys have had pretty much success after success is pretty awesome. I mean, they spend a ton. There's no accounting for the amount of money they have and stuff like that. But I've liked almost everything they've done. Even Rockstar Tennis or whatever it was. Table tennis?
Oh, table tennis, yeah.
Didn't they do table
Even
tennis,
the one where you're being asked to bowl over and over, was that 4? GTA 4?
Yeah.
Oh, like your cousin is
like, go bowling. It's like, no, please no.
Yeah.
I do not want to go bowling
Roman,
a fifth time.
No, please stop calling me Roman.
I love Roman, though. Like,
he's a great character, but man, dude needs to get off my phone.
Yeah, he's up in the junk a little bit.
Isn't that crazy? I think that speaks to like believability of their ability to execute on these projects. And we talked about it when Cyberpunk was coming out, that there wasn't a track record for Project Red in terms of executing at a very high level, because Witcher 3 had a lot of problems on launch.
Right.
It had a lot of potential and it executed later. But there wasn't like a track record for us to say Cyberpunk is 100% gonna land.
Also, dude, it also points to this weird thing when you look at how old Red Dead 2 is, and it still is one of the best looking games of all time.
And Bully. I mean, a lot of people talk a lot about Bully being an amazing, gameplay wise.
Awesome, but I just mean, I think we pretend graphics don't matter. But they do, and when it's then delivered with the simulation and all that stuff, it's a hard package for anybody to hit.
And it's still one of the best looking games ever.
One of
Red Dead 2.
Dude, I was watching somebody play that 4K no mods, and I was like, are you kidding me? This game is...
It's flat out comparable to like anything
Alan Wake
out
or
there.
any of those. Yeah, and it's doing more. It's doing like 10 times more. And
it's
so
open
it's like...
world.
Yeah. Oh, man. It's awe-inspiring to see. And I do know that they have development issues and stuff. We could, I think anything we say, we can just say we know that there's issues behind the scenes.
Caveat, right?
But I'm talking about the end result, which is, man.
But there's some stuff that just shows a level of attention to detail that's it's not a need, man.
You're cutting
out a lot, Johnny.
Frozen. Disconnect and connect again. Or we'll just all we'll have uncomfortable silence. Hang on.
Yep.
No.
The awkward silence.
Craig Ferguson, baby. One of the best late night guys in the world, man. Awkward pause was like legit. It was awesome because no one else does that kind of stuff, and those guys are there to pimp their movie or whatever, and he's just like, let's have nothing happen. Let's do awkward pause. Here we go. I liked Red Dead Online better. Ooh. Whew. You liked Red Dead Online, huh? Sorry. You there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. Yeah, we're good. Do you remember what you're trying to say before it cut off?
I almost have it. When it's like on the tip of...
Was it about the simulation that was going on in Red Dead? Was it about... I don't remember. Like, you cut off right when you started, too. All right.
It'll come back to me.
Yeah. No, it's cool, man. I want to see all these games. And I'm also even more impressed then when you see that game and you see another game that you mentioned earlier, Johnny, which is Hellblade. I was looking at Hellblade again, and I was like, that game looks good. Yeah. Right? Yes. Hellblade 1, by the way. I'm not... Yeah. You look at Hellblade 1, you're like... You're like, damn. And it's not doing as much. It's just the idea that it's top tier. Like when you start talking, Plague Tale also. There are parts of Plague Tale that I'm just like, wow, I don't know what this cost, but these guys obviously know what they're doing and delivering like insane looking places.
I was gonna mention they have like individual plates for cars in some of the GTA games.
Yeah.
Where like they actually have unique numbers for the plates and everything like that.
So it's not just like a random thing.
Yeah, which is completely unnecessary. Nobody would give a crap about it.
You could write a script that has like, this is going to be the format you're going to see for every plate in the entire game.
Didn't balls that just swell on the horse in hot days too? I mean, there's a lot of stuff they don't need to have.
Like I
shrink up.
Sure, why not?
Can you imagine? That was one person's assignment. It's like manage the ball, like how swollen the testicles are based on...
Oh, that's awesome you mentioned that. We were talking about resumes for games in voice chat. We had a patron voice chat, and we were talking about resumes for games. If somebody is on 2 games that get canceled in a row, the resume has a gap, right?
That would be a conversation starter.
And imagine if you're...
I'm the scrotum expert.
What if you're the scrotum expert for horses? You're like, bro, I did horse ball physics in RDR.
6 months of rendering and research.
Yeah, and figuring out the
horses,
geometry.
Steers, I do them all.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, I didn't just do horses.
Or if you're trying to hide that you worked on the balls and you just say like worked on Red Dead, they read that and they go, "Oh, I see you worked in Red Dead too. What did you do?"
Animal scripting.
I did the balls. I
did weather dynamics on organic substances. It's like, so you did the horse balls? Yeah, I did.
You
admittedly, that is true, though, that there are parts of Red Dead that you're playing and you're like, dude, why was this even done? But it doesn't matter because it's still you're just like, that's cool.
All lags.
Dude, I love it when a company's just like, we're doing horse balls today.
Fuck it.
That's what sucks, though. Then you see GTA Trilogy's remake and you're just like, what happened, man? What happened? Like, what were you even thinking?
You got the interns on that one.
Yeah.
That's I don't know if
they're
that's
like, Jimmy. Hey Jimmy, can you handle the remake?
I don't know.
Yeah, we sent that off to legal to get done, right? Yeah.
I don't know if I would blame that even on interns.
No, that was rough. Yeah,
that was rough. But the idea that it was like, I don't know. I feel like all the interns right now are like getting ready to DM Johnny on Twitter because it's just like, dude, we did not do that. We would have done a better job.
Don't put that on us.
Well, I mean, speaking voices, Hellblade. I mean, she wasn't a voice actor.
Yeah,
she was their assistant.
But isn't that interesting? Because this topic came up like about flat voice acting, and I was just like curious, what do you guys think is the issue where sometimes we do have like a flat delivery, even from big names? We talk about Troy Baker, and I love the guy. This is not to throw shade at him.
Miles Morales, though, man.
He's had Miles. It was kind of a flat delivery from him compared to other roles where he was just inspired. I don't know what it was. Is it just from the actor? Is it the direction? What do you guys think is going on there?
Could be direction, could be time, how much time you have to do voice recording, re-recording, how many takes, like how quickly is the turnaround, and what are the like elements around that? Because if it's like you've got a day of this person's time, as far as like you paid for like 3 days to do an entire game's worth of dialogue, it's like you don't really have time to go back and like, oh, that take was kind of flat, can you give me one with higher energy? Or even after doing that, like, oh, the flatter take, it's not the best, but it has a better resonance here at this point versus this one over here. And so what do you choose?
I think the number of takes probably is something.
Wouldn't you if you did know you didn't have a bunch of hours, wouldn't you probably say rub some dirt on it from start to finish and we'll figure that out later?
You would hope, but without
my name is Bob.
Yeah, I mean, as Josh says, it's a combination of a variety of factors, right? It could be also, is it recorded in studio? Is it recorded long distance?
Yeah,
that's true.
There's a ton of potential variables there that all affect the performance. But I think probably one of the biggest is direction from like the recording.
Was there a script glitch? Like you get a script, it's written like you are like, this is the scene setup, this is the line read, this is the intensity we're looking for, and somebody messed up and gave the wrong direction set, and the director goes, okay, do the thing, great, okay, great take, and it gets to the game like, this is a completely off-center read. Or maybe there was a rewrite. Do they have a check for like rewrites and stuff too?
Yeah, they have a check for making that initial mistake, but it can still happen.
Okay.
I mean, because you've got, if we did, when I worked with you, you do a procedure, 3 people look at it, you still have an error somewhere. That it can happen. It can happen.
100%.
But I agree with Silver that and especially we talked about this game earlier. Obsidian Protocol is a perfect example where that voice actor talked about his just insane issues that he had with direction. So if you take him and you turn down his complaints 50%, he still had a ton of issues that to me indicate that can go wrong in a really bad direction. Itself can go wrong, and if you don't get along with the director or the way they talk to you, because we see it with movies too, where somebody's like, this actor and the director didn't get along. Sometimes it works, sometimes it works great, and then other times you get,
and that's Spider-Man. A big deal, because voice acting is acting. I know it sounds obvious, but some people kind of ignore that part, and they think that if you're just good at reading, or if you're, just good at speaking normally, you would be good at voice acting. That's not really necessarily the case, because it's a craft.
Absolutely true.
Right? You have to cultivate it. There's a lot about the delivery that makes it feel like a lived-in piece of dialogue.
And somebody can rap and somebody can sing. It doesn't. They're both artists. They're just
right.
Because someone who reads an audiobook, they're probably quite monotone, or they have a very stable presentation of how they speak. But when you're voice acting, you might want a lot more range or kind of difference.
Rub some dirt on.
You say that, but some audiobooks that I like, some people who who read the audiobooks, the ones that are like more emotive or provide more variation in their voices, I will sometimes search them out, or it will be a deciding factor of whether I get an audiobook in a series. Like if I didn't, if the person reading the book, it's so petty, but like if somebody reading the book of like a fantasy novel pronounces a word from that world, I say incorrectly or something in a way that I'm not used to, it will immediately turn me off to that. That like if it's something I've even read, it's like if you say this word incorrectly in my head, I'm like, you break it and I can't be a part of it. It's
Dude, they pronounced Kovac wrong in Altered Carbon 1. And he pronounced it
Shannara
incorrectly.
Was Shannara. I'm like, nope.
Shannara
I'm hitting the eject button.
Stones books. Yeah,
we're done.
Yeah,
we're done.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Geralt is in Witcher 3, and you're like, what? You know, Laura versus Laura in Tomb Raider, because I got dinged hell out of that because I always called her Laura, and the first review I ever did. Then I started fucking around, but the first review I ever did, I was like, Laura.
Leaning into it.
People were like,
when you saw it bothered people, you were like, let's
do this.
I admit, there is sometimes that, because I know the people. Also, I do know a lot of people understand that I'm doing. You know, sometimes I'll do that, but sometimes you make an honest mistake on a pronunciation of a name. The characters in Yakuza are difficult at times. Especially if you're trying to explain a thought process, but your brain doesn't speak normal Japanese. And so you're trying to like inflect on that name because saying it monotone doesn't even, it doesn't translate at all. Like it doesn't even mean the same thing or a word and that kind of stuff. It's very cool. I was asking people in chat what they think of its talent or acting. And I do think that we're starting to see a lot of it is, some of it is the talent, but then you see these guys do amazing. And you're like, oh, maybe this was a little bit on the voice direction or lack thereof. But I do want to point out one big problem that has happened with one of the biggest games of all time. And it's a known issue. And it got through all the mistakes, or it got through everybody's checks, which is Valhalla. Valhalla was recorded. The entire game soundtrack was recorded. Not the music, sorry. The sound effects were all recorded at the wrong bit rate. And that got into the game. And that's why when you hear people hitting swords and stuff, you get like you get that like bittiness.
Oh, like a distorted.
Yep.
Crunchy.
And they even stated they tried to fix it. They tried to figure out what to do, and it's too big to fit on a Blu-ray to reprint or anything. It's like, personally, I said you'd still add it as a package on the digital versions. That's my personal opinion, is you could still correct it. But that very much happened. So one of the biggest games of all time.
Break it up into sets over a certain amount of time for patches.
It's almost like HD versions of movies and old games where they'll be like, do you want the HD cutscenes? You can go here and download them from a website. I just think Xbox could have probably had that. As we wrap it up here, I want to say thanks to everybody who's watching. Thanks to all the people who jump into the Patreon. But even if you don't, man, thanks for watching the videos and the reviews. Thanks to these guys for showing up. Do we have a random question for the wrap-up? We have something from Johnny. I'm putting Johnny on the spot, but Johnny on the spot's the same.
I haven't thought something in advance, but let me see. Okay, let's build on the Altered Carbon thing you brought up. It's a show I really liked. Did you guys read the source material as well?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought it was a really cool world and universe. What would you guys think about this idea of having your consciousness and being able to just
needle pointed
plug
around
into
the universe?
So if that was something let's just assume we figure out all the kinks, right? And we can put your consciousness perfectly in like a mini disc or whatever.
I just showed up in the horse balls in Red Dead 2. What the fuck's going on? Sentient horse balls. So you figure out all the stuff. What are you saying? Would we leave our body behind and go to another body and another?
Would you sign up for that? If I can take you perfectly and plug you into the body of your dreams, whatever it is, right? Like, would you want that, or are you?
I'm of two minds on it.
Do you feel like your body is a part of you
as well?
Very funny. No, it's more like on the one hand, is it the ship of Theseus thing? Are you still really you if you've been changed over? But at the same time, and this is more me personally, with the biological health elements that I've experienced through my life, you could not get me to sign up faster to put me in another body that did not have those issues, but still have my mind as it stands. I would absolutely I would sell everything I own to be able to do that.
And you know what's funny though? I relate to that because I also have some chronic issues and stuff. But at the same time, there's like an irrational level in which I feel attached to my body. Like like the way, the way my arms feel, like the way my body feels. I kind of identify with that. I don't know if it would be.
Yeah,
I wouldn't feel at home.
I mean, I'm much the same. I mean, my body's all but broken at this point, but I would never do that. Like my body is sort of part of me. It's been a huge part of what has shaped my identity. Like for better or worse, it is part of me, and and not only that, it's not only the idea of leaving my body, it's the idea of immortality that doesn't appeal to me. I don't want immortality. I find comfort in the thought of finality, of something, of death being there. It imbues value to life to me. The fact that my life is limited and that my tenure with this body is limited. It gives value to everything else.
Okay, KARAK, go.
So when you were originally asking this, needlepoint is going from planet to planet, and then stacks are what you're talking about. So if we're talking about just stacks, would I switch to another stack or something? Probably, but it would take some thought process to decide, like, you going into the Rock's body? No, that guy looks uncomfortable.
It's funny because I thought about the Rock.
Yeah, I knew you did. I knew where you
can't drive cars. No, shirts don't fit anymore. It's just not fun.
Yeah, like it's just not fun. I've been sick. So there's some thought process because I've been sick. What would happen if I was sick at the current time? Because I think that would also come up. My brain might change its answer if I was sick versus like if I was truly ill and it was like, oh, I want to hold on to my blah, blah, blah. But I also do not like the idea of being on Earth for more than like 1 or 2 lifestyle. That would be ridiculous because the idea of going to another planet, probably, because I love the idea of exploration of the universe. That's probably one of the highest things in my entire world. But if it was just like, dude, you're going to stack up as the Rock as a young guy, blah, 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 I'd be like, well, I'm still on Earth, and there's still the rigmarole of life that anybody has to deal with.
Standard drudgery.
It would require a lot of thought process, and it would probably depend if I was sick. The idea of being immortal, like Highlander, I mean, it covers it in every book ever, by the way, for anybody immortal, is that most of the time, the myths in Altered Carbon are a point of it, that they lose mentality. But here's one of the things I did love that Altered Carbon covered. They sort of hinted at in the movies, but they cover in the books, which is that if you're married to somebody as a meth, you have almost 2 choices. One is you become like Dune, where the emperor and everybody is married out of bloodlines and there's no love or typical royalty. But in that book in particular, that meth appeared to be very like a sociopath. But if you actually track it, it's because he did not want to, he even states, I do not want to deliver onto my wife somebody that I love beyond any measure, the physical patterns of a man and a woman. The idea of, I mean, he said it in the book, the idea of pounding away on my wife at some point went away. Like, I love her well beyond any measure in that physical thing. So those, urges would go to some, goes on at that time, it goes on to sex bots and stuff like that. So I like that idea of knowing somebody. Let's say you have a friend or whatever, and you're both are like immortal, but everybody dies in the immortal. Like, he's left alone. Even his wife dies. I just watched these a couple days ago, and I'm like, this is nothing but a story of loss for a guy who could end his own life by just getting a guillotine for $7 off of the internet and fucking chopping his own head off, which is probably what I would do. You'd probably go nuts.
At a certain point.
Yeah, you get that point of where, why should I be friends with this person because they're going to go away? And I don't know about you guys. I feel that already online. You'll know somebody online, and you're like, well, this is not the same. There's a tenuous pattern to the online relationships. People can walk away.
There's
it takes
distance.
longer.
Yeah,
there's a distance. And that would suck, I was
going to say by that same token, the whole mythology around vampires. They are immortal as well, and then it's basically just kind of an analog for losing your humanity over time. So the longer you live, the less human you become by that nature of permanency. And
it wouldn't be great.
It's one of the main themes of Interview with the Vampire, right?
Right.
Louis grows up thinking, oh, there's only me and Lestat, and then all of a sudden he finds out, oh, there's an entire community of us, like in Paris, that all of a sudden there's a community and a fellowship there.
And I think that shows you that the main issue is the kind of the loneliness, the fact that it was only you and maybe one other person who is, immortal. But if this is kind of accessible to everybody and everybody's just plugging into the rock,
everybody, exactly. Yep. So if my parents and family members started doing it, then that's a completely different process. It's like, well, this is sort of what we do.
Yeah.
And it might handle, the spread of population being too big on the earth in the, next 3 or 4 decades, even though some people argue it's down, it's up, it doesn't matter. It's just, it might help that. But the idea of living forever, after a while, I think I would just be like...
I think I could keep it interesting for a good,
I think I said 2. Oh, Jesus, that's a long time.
Because we did this question, right?
Yeah,
like, how long would you keep going?
Time. You'd be great. Yeah, the world's gonna, like, you'd be standing there going, "Why am I alive? There's an asteroid gonna hit us."
Going on.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I. So you're saying, okay, how about this? You know that in 2085 an asteroid's going to hit. Would you still extend it?
Sure. It sounds like dying from the asteroid would be pretty painless. It would be just like a quick blip and you're out.
Not saying
I'll
I don't
take
believe
that
him,
over
but...
like getting hit by a bus or anything
my God,
mundane.
Who wouldn't? What are you talking about, bro? Yeah, getting vaporized by a nuke or by an asteroid would be a lot better.
Depends on where you are on the planet and whatnot. If you get,
I don't want to see a tsunami.
Choked by like the fumes afterwards.
That's true. I don't want.
You want to be under it, right? When that thing punches in, and you're just like
bang on,
and you turn into clothing,
or near the shockwave. Yeah.
The even worse version is like, yes, it's an asteroid, but it's taking so long to get there because it's moving so slow that the impact is so minuscule. All it's doing is just shoving the Earth out of orbit, so you slowly freeze. Is the only change.
Yeah, it's a like a mass driver, but they somehow figure out a way to keep it in orbit.
It's the slowest shot you've seen in pool, where the cue ball slowly just taps the other ball.
I always like these questions because while I say all this stuff, I mean, I can tell. I mean, most of us here have dealt with it, strangely enough. But when you're dealt with mortality, shit does change.
Oh,
I like one of my friends who got cancer at a later. He's passed away, but when he got cancer the first time, you could tell the entire thought process, everything changed. Socks, like things that mattered, were. I mean, they were nuked from life. Nuked.
Perspective.
They were, and mine was when I was younger. So over time, you forget it, but it does drive a lot of the stuff I do. Where I'm like, okay, this is not going to matter.
Definitely.
Because like
it is the paradigm shift of your existence.
Yeah, you see, that's why you see some, whatever it may be. Somebody's like, dude, that just it's not like. There's so little that matters when it comes to. Life when this thing happens. And what's good is a lot of people, I feel, not everybody, but I feel strangely enough, especially with illnesses, you do hear about, people who succumb to it, but I do hear more of the other stories even around me. So I'm not picking and choosing from like the internet, talking about people around me where when something does happen, you can see the tenacity of human life pretty crazily. That's why, like, if an asteroid came, I'd be building a bunker. And they were like, no, bunker's not going to work. And I'm like, I'm still building a bunker. Because humans have that. Have you guys ever... I've done so many stupid things physically where while it's happening, you're like, I'm sure if anybody dies, it will not be me. And you're like, dude, everybody has that thought before they die. But you lie to yourself. You'll be like, I'm jumping the car. I'm sure I'll live. Of all these people, I'll probably be the only one to live. And every other person in that car with you, or every person who's doing something stupid with you, I bet
is thinking the same thing.
Yeah, they're all going
100%.
You know why? Because we're all main actor. Like we all have main actor syndrome.
Yeah, we think we are the main
NPC. Yeah, you think you're Geralt. Guess what? You're not. You're the guy that he walks by, slices on accident, killing a fucking goblin.
You're fucking secondary Joe Bob.
Yeah. I'm the comic relief. I know that in my life.
If you're in a GTA game, maybe you have a specialized license plate. right?
Yeah,
that would be it. You have like Johnny.
Yeah, true. You have a unique.
You got a
unique
license plate. That's the farthest we go. Anyway,
that is the truly remarkable thing about humans is our adaptability, our ability to make the abnormal into the new normal, as it were. Like you go to somewhere where they live in abject squalor, where you think, how can people live like this?
Right.
And you still
and they're
find
laughing and joking around.
Yeah, exactly. And kids are still playing in the street, and they're still making a life, even in the presence of that misery. And that is the main asset of humanity.
Yeah, I mean, it unfortunately can also turn up in like drug abuse, where somebody will live in that, and that becomes their norm.
Yes.
And you're like, dude, you got to step up your game.
It can be a detriment as well.
Yeah, it can be a detriment. But I don't mean to be a downer, because technically, I agree with you that.
Your point.
It's pretty awesome. Or if we knew, Josh, you knew Claudio, right?
Yeah.
We had a roommate. He was from South America, right? Wasn't he from South America?
Brazil or something.
Brazil. It was Brazil,
so.
But he was a street thug, street thief, street like robber, right? He would grab he was the kid who would get with other groups of kids like an Assassin's Creed and steal your shit and run off. And he did some heinous stuff. He grew out of it, obviously, and he came to America, got adopted by really cool parents, amazing parents and all that stuff. But we talked to him, and some of the stories he told, the way he told it was like me telling a story about sitting around on a couch. But the stories he told were those stories where you're like, the fuck is this guy talking about? Like, you did what? And to him, it was, everyday life. Yeah. It wasn't even,
that's the perspective.
And if he saw, it's almost like us seeing a movie star where you're like, oh, and he said that about America, Western, because at that time it was a big deal. He was like, that's sort of how I saw you guys, as like unattainable to be there. But it didn't stop me from doing what I needed to do to make sure I had food or whatever. And you're just like, dude, that's it's sad that he had to do that as a kid, but he turned out to be one of the greatest guys I've ever known in my life. So it's like, there's something to be said too about having all those things, and then later as you get older, you can make choices a little better, where you're like, yeah, this is probably not what there was probably a lot of force of personality from him. We never saw it, but I would assume when you do come to America, I wonder if the first time you have a bad day in America, if you think about stealing somebody. I never asked him that. It was like, you come.
When do you let that
do you
life
revert
go
back? Like, what if something bad happens? I don't know what it would. Let's say he loses an apartment. You lose your apartment, because I've been homeless. So it's like, oh shit, I gotta sleep in the dark tonight. But it's like, if I don't have the skills like he had, so it's I never asked him that. That would have been an awesome discussion, because he was a phenomenal guy. People from Brazil are cool. Just want to say that for Johnny.
There we go.
Johnny's like, yeah, I know.
Everybody from Brazil.
Every single person from Brazil. I'm lying. That is not true. Anyway, that'll be it for us. I want to say thank you to everybody who showed up. Thanks to Josh for coming. Thanks to Johnny and Silver for coming. Don't know where Absy is. He was ill. I was teasing him earlier. He was ill. He was not dishonest. He actually told me last night that he felt sick. So it wasn't like a last minute drop. As I told Josh, it was because he was on.
Yep.
Absy just hates Josh. Do we have anything else, Johnny?
It's a known quality.
It's a known quality. Yeah, it's just like, come on. Nobody likes Josh. Johnny, what are you going to stream this weekend?
Okay, so tomorrow I am streaming my playthrough of Alan Wake 2.
You done?
2 p.m. I am not done. No, I am progressing and enjoying it very, very much. As someone who loved the first game, this one has been very
enjoyable.
Very, very enjoyable.
All right, that'll be it for us. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Check out whatever you want to check out. Enjoy your weekend. Hope you guys get to play some cool games. There's a bunch of games coming from me. I had to move the review. There'll be a list video coming out, I believe, on Monday for games you may have missed in 2023. But I think that's about all I have planned right now, because now's the time to play big games, because there's not a ton coming out.
Yeah.
So anyway, that'll be